Okay, hopefully I can hit the start button before it auto goes into the intro. Okay. Last episode ended kind of an awkward spot. We're going to pick up right there on the awkward spot. We just got introduced to a new character whose name I don't remember already, who's about to die. Yay. Yep.
それでもいくつかわからないことがある。
Even so, there are a number of things that I don't understand.
いや、わからないことの方が多いと言ってもいい。
No, you could say there are a whole lot of things I don't understand.
それはそうだろう。当然だ。
Okay, I'm gonna write down Inomoto, although I don't remember what his first name is, or last name. I don't know which name that is actually, because it's confusing what this translation is doing with the name orders.
まずは、なぜこんな現象が起きたのか。
To start with, what's causing this phenomenon? I guess it's his first name, since Satoru is like the first name of Satoru. So,
いきなり確信をついてきたね。
yeah, cutting straight to the chase, eh?
まあ、いいだろ
Fine, I suppose. Inomoto stood up from his chair and walked toward the supercomputer.
う。装置のおかげさ。
It's because of this device. Wait, so I just hit a button and they swap? Great. Saying that Inomoto placed his hand
装
on.
置の処理によってこの現象は起きている。
Because of the process of this device, the phenomenon is allowed to occur.
説明は以上だ。
Explanation over.
悪いが、ちっともわからない。
Sorry, but I have no idea what you mean.
装置ってなんだ？どういう仕組みなんだ？
What is this device? How does it work?
そもそも、そんな大掛かりな装置があったとして、仮に停電にでもなったらどうするつもりなんだ？
In the first place, you must have a lot of blackouts with such a large-scale device, right? What do you do then? Right, we actually had a transference occur during a blackout.
それで、現象は止まったりしないのか？
Actually, never mind. We didn't have it transfer during the blackout. We transferred back during the blackout. So maybe it's like it can't initiate when it's blacked out, but it still will retire after, or it'll finish after 33 minutes, even if there is a blackout. Yeah, because Kokoro was there during when the blackout happened, and then the transfer expired, and Satoru transferred back in the blackout. Does that put a stop to the phenomenon?
中途半端な状態。例えば、人格交換の途中で装置が停止してしまったら、とんでもない事故になってしまうんじゃないのか？
What if it was a mid-operation? If it was in mid-operation, for example, if the device stopped while a personality exchange was still occurring, it'd be very bad, wouldn't it?
まあ待てよ。立て続けに質問しないでくれないかね。順番に行こうじゃないか。
Slow down for a moment. Could you not ask so many questions at a time? Let's go in order, all right?
まず後者についてだが、心配はいらない。
First, about the latter issue, which is we're not going in order, we're going in reverse order. There's no need for concern.
このスフィアには発電機が設置されている。
Sphia is equipped with its own generator, which means the blackout was intentional in order to commit a murder.
自家発電ってやつだ。
A personal power supply, in other words. Yeah, so someone triggered that blackout intentionally, is what you're saying. Great. Inomoto inclined his jaw toward an iron door to his left. With this much space, it might actually be possible.
しかも、いざという時には予備電源に切り替わるようになっている。
Moreover, if worse comes to worse, it will switch to a backup power supply.
予備電源でも数十時間は稼働できる。
The backup power supply is sufficient to provide several hundred hours worth of electricity.
99.999999999% 事故は起こり得ない。
Probability of an accident occurring is 0.000000001%.
次に前者についてだが、
Next, about the former of your two main concerns.
細かい説明は後にさせてくれないか？
Can the details wait until later?
順を追って説明しないとこちらもやりにくいんでね。
If I don't explain it in order, it'll be more difficult for me.
わかったよ。
Understood.
疑問は他にもまだある。
I still have other questions. About the moon. The phase of the moon was the same at both Mount Akakura in 2011 and Sphia in 2012. More specifically, they were both at the correct phase for the year 2012. about the ocean. At Mount Agakura, after climbing out of the bowl-shaped hollow, I saw an ocean there. Moreover, at Asogi Island, when I opened the front gate of Svea, there was an ocean waiting there for me as well.
どういうことなんだ？
What does it mean?
それを解く前に一つ言っておくことがある。
Before I answer that, which I won't because we gotta keep the mystery going, there's something that I must say.
君は勘違いをしている。
You seem to be misunderstanding.
勘違い？
Misunderstanding.
君たちは人格交換。人格が転移をしているんじゃない。
Here's the problem. Kokoro saw the ocean. Right at the end of Kokoro's route. I was gonna be like, well, so they're bringing the shelter cabin. So basically, what they're doing is they're taking the shelter cabin, and they're putting it on top of Svea, and then taking Svea and putting it where the shelter cabin is. They're like swapping the buildings' locations. Okay. In that case, you would expect that you only see the beach if you're Satoru, right? Because when you're Satoru, that means that the shelter cabin is brought to where Satoru is to put Satoru in the shelter cabin. But we saw the beach as Kokoro at some point. So that's not entirely true. Now maybe you could say, well, later on in this timeline, as Satoru figure out a way to break the transference phenomenon such that that can happen, where we've brought the shelter cabin to Svea, and by doing so, you've saved the people in the shelter cabin. Or we figure out a way to bring the shelter cabin to Svea and not have the personalities change. Like just have the people overlap into each other. However, so that might be a thing. But there's still more things that are bothering me about this, about being the places swapping. Only Kokoro and Satoru seem to be swapping, right? It's not like we're getting like Lin is getting superimposed on top of Utsumi and Yomogi is getting imposed on top of, I don't know, Inabushi Keiko or something, right? It's not like they're exchanging the people in their entirety, which if you change the whole setting, you would expect to be exchanging all the people. The only people being exchanged are Kokoro and Satoru, and perhaps Kaiko with somebody. Because Kaiko might be exchanging, and there might be some weird acting going on. Uni doesn't seem to be swapping, because the things that Uni seems to not know when he's at Svea, he still doesn't know when he's at Svea, unless he's lying about everything. Which means he would know beforehand what to lie about. Utsumi and Yomogi don't seem to be swapping at all. And Meizumi also, or Lin, doesn't seem to be swapping at all. So, let's see what he says. I might have guessed the wrong thing about what he's going to say.
本当に転移しているのは
What's really being transferred
空間。
is space. Huh? I mean, it's not a big twist. Like, I could kind of see this, right? Because, like, I thought about this kind of thing, because Kokoro goes up the mountain, and then she doesn't see an ocean. And the next day she goes up the mountain and sees an ocean. It's hard, you can't really explain this without saying that the shelter cabin the whole scene got teleported somewhere else, right? This isn't like a mind-blowing twist at this point. It was mind-blowing back at the end of Kokoro's route. But it doesn't make sense in every respect. It only makes sense in like a little bit of respect.
空間自体が転移しているんだよ。
Space itself is being transferred.
正確に言えば、空間が時間を飛び越えて転移している。つまりは、
To be specific, it's space that leaps through time and is transferred. In other words, another thing is the weather seems to be the same in both places, and both the same in both places with the character you're playing, no matter which character you're playing as. Like, you could argue, if space is being transferred, you could have a situation where when the shelter cabin moves to Sphia, that it adopts Sphia's weather, and then it goes back to the shelter cabin. But when it goes back, it should adopt the shelter cabin's weather again. If the weather was different both places, then you'd have some instances where you'd have Sphia adopting the shelter cabin. Sphia, like, you'd have, like, Satoru would keep experiencing the same weather the whole time, and Kokoro would be experiencing the same weather the whole time. When Kokoro moves to Sphia, she's experiencing the same weather as she was experiencing at the shelter cabin, right? As Satoru goes to the shelter cabin, he's experiencing the same weather he was experiencing at Sphia. The problem is that they don't just line up within the same character, they line up across the characters. So Kokoro in the shelter cabin is experiencing the same weather as Satoru in Sphia. So there's like way more to it than just they're swapping the space, right?
時空間転移だ。
A space-time transfer.
時空間転移
A space-time transfer.
そうだ。
Yes. Having said that, Inamoto once again took a seat and began typing something out on the keyboard. As he did, images began to appear on a nearby mirror.
君の導き出した推理とは、つまりこういうことだろ
In other words, the reasoning you've been able to derive goes something like this, doesn't it?
2011年の赤倉岳にいる冬川心。それと2012年の青崎島にいる君、結城堂悟。
Wasn't Windows XP out at this time? Wow. This is like some Windows 3 kind of stuff here. Fuyukawa Kokoro, who exists on the Mount Akakura of the year 2011, and you, Yukito Satoru, who exists on the Sogi Island in the year 2012. This diagram means nothing to me.
それぞれの意識が肉体から乖離し、時空を飛び越え、互いに入れ替わる。
Both of your consciousnesses are released from their respective bodies, jumped through space, and enter each other's.
こんな風にね。
Just like this.
そして君は2011年の冬川心の肉体に憑依し、逆に冬川心は君の肉体に憑依する。
And so, you possess the body of Fuyukawa Kokoro in the year 2011, and likewise Fuyukawa Kokoro possesses yours.
人格交換。
A personality exchange.
こう考えたわけだろ？違うかい？
Well, this is how you thought of it, right? Or am I wrong? Well, I mean, I must confess that, yeah, I was deceived.
そうだ
That's right.
だがそれでは説明のつかないことがある
However, there are things this doesn't
月
explain.
と海のことだろ。
You're referring to the moon and the ocean, correct?
ああ
Yeah. Again, it's like, I don't know if it's intentional that they're referencing Tsugumi's name, seemingly. I mean, Tsugumi at this time would have been 6 years before, so she would have been 27, she'd been 17. And I forget how many years she was in the lab, 8 years, and she did when she was 12, so she escaped when she was, yeah, I think she was 19. The way the 8 years work is kind of shifted so that the years kind of fudge. But, so she would have still been in the lab now, but nearing the end. So nearing the time when she would escape, I think. Because I seem to recall it was 4 years between her escape and when she showed up at Lemu. Trying to recall the exact numbers. That may not be exactly right. Okay, so my best guess, I'm not exactly remembering the timeline of Ever 17 exactly, but from what I can remember, I think that she's still in the lab right now.
当然だ。矛盾するとも。
I don't think it's actually going to be relevant. We're not going to suddenly have her appear in this game. Her sprite doesn't match the styles of the sprites in this game. There's no way they're going to swap in other characters. Just like they didn't swap in sprites from Never 7 into Ever 17. They mentioned characters, but they're only background characters and not main characters. So it's just kind of goofy that they keep saying the moon and the ocean. Of course, they're contradictions. Inamoto snickered.
繰り返すが、君は勘違いをしている。
I'll say it once more, but you've been misunderstanding.
この考え方は間違っているんだよ。
This line of thinking is incorrect.
時空間転移とか言ったな。
A space-time transfer, you said.
それは一体。
Just what does that mean? He's going to go to that diagram and he's going to swap the windows as opposed to the circles, right?
こういうことさ。
This. Inamoto tapped at the keyboard again. The monitor began to display a different image.
2011年赤倉岳冬川心。
The year 2011, Mount Akakura, Fuyukawa, Kokoro.
2012年青鷺島有機堂悟。
Oh. No, they're really going to say uni swapping into uni. Oh no. Well, then uni would have to be... Okay, so... Kokoro's... So you could say, okay, Kokoro's always interacting with the same uni. And Satoru's always interacting with the same uni. Right? They're never interacting with the other uni that the other one interacted with. Still... Unis seem to know stuff from the future. Oh, you have to have so it's like the same uni, and then he goes back in time and he beats the same uni again. But no, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Because both the unis at Sphia seem really ignorant from both characters' perspective. The unis between the characters don't seem to be different. That's the problem. If they're both characters are always meeting the same uni, then there should be a difference between the uni across the characters. And no difference really in the uni in the same character. But we don't see that. Now, Hotori is a bit funky. Utsumi is a bit weird. Well, see, we can continue. There might be something going on with Hotori where she's swapping. If Hotori turns into Lin? Oh dear. Year 2012, Asogi Island, Yukido Satoru.
この初期条件は先ほどと同じだ。
The initial conditions are the same as before.
しかし、ここから先が違う。
But here's where it differs.
君たちに起きている現象は人格の移動ではないのだ。
In the phenomenon that you're currently experiencing, it's not your personality that transfers.
さっき空間自体が転移してるとか言ってたな。
You said that it was space itself transferring before, didn't you?
そう。
Yes. I guess you could just say no one's swapping but Satoru and Kokoro. This they're not swapping, and everybody else's consciousness is being pulled with the space-time transfer. Now, it's the simplest way to do it, but I keep wanting to extend the concept. Yes?
空間。赤倉岳の避難小屋を中心とした半径110メートル。
A space with a radius, I presume that means spherical radius, of 110 meters with the Mount Akakura emergency shelter cabin in the center.
それと、青鷺島のスフィアを中心とした半径110メートル。
And Asagi Island Sphia at the center of a space with the same radius of 110 meters. See being thrown up onto Mount Akakura and back down. So if Kokoro were to leave Sphia through the gate using Satoru's identification card and walk outside, she'd find herself on Mount Akakura. Supposedly.
その半径110メートルの球体に含まれる空間が転移しているのさ。
Everything within the 110 meter radius of this sphere is transferred.
この球体の中に含まれるありとあらゆる物質が 2011年と2012年のそれぞれの2年間においてごっそりと入れ替わる。
Every last thing. Okay, so they're saying that even the characters. So somehow Hotori becomes mute when she ends up on the shelter on Mount Agakura somehow. Every last thing within the two spheres changes places between the same 2 points, between the years 2011 and 2012.
こんな風に。
Just like this.
これが時空間転移と呼ばれる現象だ。
This is the phenomenon called the space-time transfer.
こうすることで避難小屋の半径110メートルの円。
Like this, you have a 110-meter spherical enclosure around the shelter cabin.
仮にサークルとでも呼ぼうか。
Or you could call it a circle instead.
すると避難小屋のサークル外にアオサギ島の海が広がっていることになる。
And so, outside the shelter cabin circle lies the ocean of Asogi Island.
ちょっと待てよ。
And if you were to exit that 110-meter sphere, then you don't get transferred. So if you go up to the summit of the mountain and over the top, and then a switch occurs, then you end up leaving Yomogi behind on the mountain, and Yomogi comes back, trying to come back to the shelter cabin, and ends up at the gate of Sphere. Is that what happens at the end? Yomogi shows up at Sphere? Yeah, so they all exit while it's swapped. They swap back, and then, okay, I see how it is. Wait a second.
俺と心のことはどうなる？俺の肉体と心の肉体はなぜ入れ替わってしまうんだ？
What about me and Kokoro? Why are my body and Kokoro switching places?
それに月のことはどうなる？
And what about the moon?
俺が13日に見た月はどちらも2012年のものだった。間違いない。
That's a good point. That makes the weather line up, but let's see here. It's still swapping in time, right? The moon I saw on the 13th was the same as the one on the year 2012, no matter how I looked at
君
it.
たちは例外なんだ。
You too are the exception.
例外だと。
An exception.
君たちの意識は転移せずにその場に残留している。
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, I'm stupid. Okay. Your consciousnesses don't transfer. They remain at their original space.
残留？
Remain?
見たまえ。
Watch. Yamamoto pointed to the monitor. The image had changed without me noticing.
転移の際、君と冬川心の意識だけは肉体から乖離してその場に残留する。
On the verge of the transfer, you and Fuyukawa Kokoro's consciousnesses alone separate from their bodies and remain in place. So they won't be
君の意識
exactly...
は2012年のアオサギ島に、冬川心の意識は2011年の赤倉岳に。
They have to move somewhat, though, because they're not going to be, like, standing in the exact same places on top of each other. Your consciousness is at Asogi Island in the year 2012, and Fuyukawa Kokoro's occur in the year 2011.
そして、君たちの意識を除いた物質と他の人間たちだけが転移をする。
Your consciousnesses separate from their bodies and remain. Everyone else is completely transferred. Yeah, but they don't separate if the other person is outside the sphere, right? That's what we're going to utilize, right?
肉体という器をなくした君と冬川心の意識は、新たにやってきた代替品としての器の中へとそれぞれ憑依する。
Yeah, they're going to... Basically, Satoru's going to exit. There's going to be a transfer, and Satoru's consciousness is not going to exit his body because he's not in the circle. So when Kokoro comes... So because of that, Kokoro's doesn't either. And then they're allowed to meet, right? Okay. Except Kokoro skips forward a year. After having lost the containers you call bodies, you and Fuyukawa Kokoro entered these backup containers, the others' bodies, to possess them.
すると、
Which...
こうなるわけだ。
looks a bit like this.
君は冬川心の肉体に、冬川心は君の肉体に。
You in Fuyukawa Kokoro's body and Fuyukawa Kokoro in your body.
どうだい？頭のいい君ならもう理解できただろう。
Well, as sharp as you are, you understand by now, don't you? And this is why he eats the food, because he doesn't see there's any danger, right? Yeah, okay.
これが君たちの身に起きた転移現象の正体だ。
This is the truth, the transference phenomenon you're undergoing. Right, and you can just exit the sphere, the swap happens, and he's carrying a bunch of food, right? And then he walks back into the sphere with the food. Yeah. As long as, because that works as long as the personalities don't swap if he's outside the sphere. If they do swap, it's weird. No, if you do stop, it could work, but you have to be able to communicate between each other. Because then the other person possesses your body, and then you have to, This is the truth, the transference phenomenon you're undergoing.
だから俺は常に2012年の月を見てたわけなのか。
That's why I always saw the 2012's moon, year 2012's moon.
その通りだ。
Precisely. Inamoto said, nodding as he
なん
did.
で俺たちの意識だけが残留するんだ。わけがわからない。
Why is it our consciousnesses that remain? I don't understand. I said barely above a whisper.
さてね。
Who knows?
どういうわけかな。
I wonder what it means. I had expected Inamoto's response. The inside of my head was in total chaos. As soon as one question was solved, another rose to take its place, and another, continuing on without end. Solving one puzzle only brought forth another. There was no end. These mysteries were inexhaustible. And on and on and on and on. And we just kept making more games and more games. Around and around it went in the endless circle. They're going to say, the infinity! Oh, quantum
信じられな
teleportation.
い。
No! No, not bad science fiction again. Quantum teleportation is a random thing. You cannot control it with a machine. And it doesn't last 33 minutes. I don't believe it.
こんなこと起こり得るはずが。
Something like this, it couldn't possibly.
だが実際に起きているだろ。
However, it is actually happening, is it not?
それが真実かどうか一番よく分かっているのは君自身じゃないのかね。
You should know better than anyone else whether it's real or not.
真理を頭で考えても見えてこない。
No matter how much you think about it, no truth will appear.
常識という枠にとらわれてはいけない。
Don't let yourself be trapped by so-called common sense.
感じたことを素直に受け入れるんだ。
Take in what you feel, no matter how absurd it is. That's how you analyze the meta of these games, by the way. Enomoto stared at me over his sunglasses. I couldn't look away. There's no way he was lying. That understanding came out from my head, but from a deeper instinct. Came not from my head, but from a deeper
しか
instinct.
し
But
しかしなぜそんな馬鹿げた現象が起きるんだ。
why is such a ridiculous phenomenon occurring in the first place?
やれやれ。
Oh dear.
本来こんなことを私が説明するまでもないはずなのだが。
There should have been no need for me to explain this in the first place, because the amnesia was an accident, apparently. But
仕方がない。
there's no help.
長くなるのでできるだけかいつまんで教えてあげよう。
It'll be long, so I'll try to summarize where I can. Inamoto repositioned his sunglasses.
君は量子テレポーテーションって知っているかい？
Yes, have you ever heard of quantum teleportation? Yes, in really bad science fiction framework. And also in reality, in which they are a lot different. Sure, I have.
それは好都合だ。ではその解説は省略することにしよう。
That's convenient. Then I'll omit that part as the explanation. Good.
量子テレポーテーションは本来人間などは転送させることはできず、
Originally, quantum teleportation could transfer things like humans.
光子や原子といった微粒子のみの転送しかできないと言われていた。
Many thought it could only be used, quote unquote. Well, you can actually. It's complete. You could use a scanning electron microscope, which uses quantum teleportation, but it doesn't. It's not like I want to transfer this electron. Let me press this button and this electron gets transferred. No, it's letting the electrons be transferred randomly and having an exposure time to measure the statistics, which is a lot different than this. And by exposure time, it's not like I mean like a camera. I just mean like having the needle over the specimen, right? That's like a time, right? And there's some duration over which the needle is over the specimen over a specific point. And so you can measure a rate in which electrons are teleported up into the needle. And that tells you how far away the specimen is. To get a rate, you need multiple occurrences. You need statistics. Right.
だが、私の属している企業によって開発された技術がそれを可能にした。
However, I don't know if that's actually called electron microscope. Might be called a some sort of other kind of microscopy. Getting all my my electron microscope stuff kind of mixed up. Anyway, it's a type of microscopy that uses quantum tunneling. However, the technology developed by the business enterprise I belong to has made it possible. What's this business enterprise? Some sort of pharmaceutical company again?
微粒子に分解された原子の状態、人間や物体の量子情報を転送するのだ。
What we transfer is the state of the atoms disassembled, the quantum information of human bodies.
ちなみに転送後はオリジナルの量子情報は失われるわけだから。
By the way, the original quantum information is lost after the transfer.
無生物の場合はコピーを作るだけということになるが、人間を転送した場合、
In the case of an inanimate object, the transfer would only create a copy of the object. But when humans are transferred,
オリジナルの人間は送信元のサークル内では消滅。息を引き取り、受信先で再構築。蘇っているということになるわけだ。
basically, they're getting this nonsense sci-fi explanation that makes no sense for you can't transfer the soul, which is interesting. The original, and then they're going to say so the soul disembodies. But then how does that explain the other characters? The original human disappears inside the circle of transmission. They die, and then reconstruct themselves at the reception point.
ただし、君たちの場合は例外で、意識が送信元に残留してしまうため。
Oh, he's saying that's what usually happens is the soul actually does get transferred. But he uses the word die to be sensationalist, but yours don't. Your souls don't get transferred. Okay. In other words, they are resurrected. However, you two are an exception. Your consciousnesses remain at the origin of transfer.
その肉体は一見魂が抜き取られたようにも見えることだろう。
At first glance, it may seem as if your soul has left its body.
これが先ほど言った肉体という器をなくすという現象の正体だ。
This is the true nature of the phenomenon I mentioned earlier, wherein you lose the containers you call bodies. This also goes back to the whole... This might have been inspired by writing that whole speech by Tsugumi, where she's like, do you ever clip your fingernails? When you clip your fingernails, does the thing you clipped off, is that you? Yeah, and then she eventually goes off on, your body, that's just a platform. You, what makes you you, is not your body. You are the software that is running on your body. Free me from this body. Well, this guy figured out how to do exactly, if she's one of the special people, to do to Tsugumi exactly what she wanted to happen, or she'd be just transferred to a different body, according to her spiel. Although, why would she want to do that? That still doesn't make any sense, or why she'd want to actually ever do that. But this can do it for her, I suppose, if she's one of these special people, which we don't know what makes someone one of these special people or not. This is the true nature of the phenomenon I mentioned earlier, where you lose the containers you call bodies.
話は戻るが、この量子テレポーテーションの仕組みを両地点に設定しておけば、相互の転移が可能となる。
Getting back to the point, if this quantum teleportation construction is established at two different points, mutual transfer between them becomes possible.
赤倉岳と青鷺島、2つの量子情報は転送し合う。
Mount Akakura and Asogi Island both, their quantum information is transferred between them.
ご理解していただけたかな？
Have you found my explanation understandable? Once he finished talking, Inamoto exhaled and brought the coffee cup to his lips.
まずいな。
How unpleasant.
やれやれ。 すっかり冷めてしまったか。
It's gone completely cold.
なるほど。
I see.
時空間転移の正体が量子テレポーテーションということは分かった。
I understand that the space-time transfer is actually quantum teleportation.
けれどその量子テレポーテーションがどのようにして時空間転移に結びつくかが分からない。
Though I don't know what quantum teleportation and transference through space and time have to do with each other. There is an analogous thing to teleportation, quantum teleportation in the time direction. And I don't know how to explain that. I'll just not explain it. But yeah, it could be pair production annihilation that happens. Anyway.
特に空間はともかくとしてなぜ時間を跳躍して転移するんだ。
Especially time. Traveling through space aside, how is it possible to travel through time?
当然の疑問だな。
I thought you might ask.
よろしい。
Very well.
ではそれを説明しよ
Then I'll continue my explanation. Inamoto lowered his cup.
う。まず時空間転移を発生させるための装置が存在する。
First, a device for enabling space-time transfer exists.
これは先ほども述べた通りだ。
It's the same as what I stated before.
時空間転移装置、そう私は呼んでいる。
The space-time transfer phenomenon device, that's what I call it.
装置は EPR ペアの粒子を生み出す発生源であり、粒子の測定器であり、転送時の変換器でもある。
This device acts as the source that brings forth the EPR pair's particles, measures those particles, and then transfers them to the reception point.
いわば時空間転移の心臓部というわけだ。
It's the heart of the space-time transfer, so to speak.
技術的な説明はいい。
A technical explanation would be fine.
俺が聞きたいのはそんなことでなく、
What I want to hear isn't some...
わかっている。
I know.
まあそう焦るな。
Don't get so worked up. Inamoto held up a hand to command silence before
装置
continuing.
にはさらにもう一つの機能が備わっている。
The device possesses one additional ability,
それは
and that is
時間を歪める機能だ。
the ability to bend time.
時間を歪める。
Bend time.
そうだ。
Correct.
限られたある一定空間の中だけだがな。
It's restricted to a predefined space, however.
よくわからないな。
I don't know what you mean.
時間を歪める行為と時空間を跳躍することにどんな関係性があるというんだ。
How exactly are you saying bending time and jumping through time and space are related?
まあ理論的なところは省略するが、つまりは
Well, I'll skip the theoretical bits, which don't make any sense anyway because this is fiction.
こ
But
ういうことだ。
in short, it's this. Inamoto tapped something into the keyboard.
これは時間と空間を二次元的に表した図だ。
This figure represents time and space as a two-dimensional diagram. Are we gonna do like the Minkowski diagrams here? We're gonna do some special relativity.
Y 軸を時間、X 軸を空間、緯度を示している。
The y-axis represents time and the x-axis represents space, specifically the latitude of each location.
それで
And then,
この赤い印は2011年の赤倉岳。青い印を同じく2011年のアオサギ島と考えてくれたまえ。
how are they gonna do this? Think of this red mark as Mount Akakura of 2011 and the blue mark as the Asogi Island of 2011.
両者は同じ時間軸上に存在するが、空間については別の位置にあるということだ。
They're really gonna do a Lorenz boost, really? They're gonna boost them together? I would be happy if they showed that diagram, the boosting them together. So what it does, it just moves really fast. It doesn't work like this, people. Yes, you can boost them together, but then you have to be, in order to see them together, you have to switch between the two observers. right? You can't actually, for the same observers, converge any two events into one event. That makes it so that defies everything. That the whole principle. Anyway, we'll see if they actually do this. This might be the most terrible pseudoscience I've ever seen.
両者を Y 軸上においてプラス方向に移動し、このような状態とする。
If we move both spaces into the plus region of the y-axis, it becomes like this.
2地点の時間は2011年から2012年へと変化した。
The time in which the 2 points exist changes from 2011 to 2012.
これが我々が体験する時間の経過というやつだ。
This is the normal passage of time we experience.
もちろんわかるだろ？
You understand this much, correct?
問題ない。
No problems yet.
赤倉岳と青鷺島がこのように同じ時間軸上に存在し、異なるのが空間だけであるならば、転移には何の支障もない。
As you can see, Mount Akakura and Asogi Island exist on the same time axis, and nothing stands in the way of a transference between them.
そうだな。
That's right. Yeah, I'm still gonna think they're gonna like hook up onto something moving really fast, like hooks on and then switches to that different reference frame and then bridges reference frames. Again, that makes no sense. That's right.
だが、
However,
実際のところはこうだ。
at the moment, it's more like this.
冬川心のいる赤倉岳は2011年に存在し、我々のいる青鷺島は2012年にある。
Mount Akakura, which Fuyukawa Kokoro exists in, is the year 2011, and the Asogi Island where we currently stand is the year 2012.
空間ばかりか、時間までも座標軸が異なっている。
Not only space, but the time axes differ as
この
well.
ままでは転移はできない。
Like this, transfer isn't possible.
両地点に双子の粒子を飛ばすこともできないし、送信側から受信側へと測定結果を伝達することもできない。
The twin particles are unable to jump between the 2 points, so the results of the measurements can't be transferred between the sending and receiving ends.
つまり、量子情報の変換を行うことができない
In other
と
words,
いうわけだな。
the conversion of quantum information can't occur.
その通り。
That's exactly it.
では、どうするんだ？いや、
Then what do you do?
どうやってるんだ？
How does it happen?
2つの地点の座標を1本の直線で結ぶのさ。
The new coordinate points are connected by a single straight line,
リンクを結ぶんだ。
a link between them.
仮にこの直線を T' と呼ぼう。
For the time being, let's call this line T prime, which unfortunately is drawn at a 45-degree angle, which means they can't really make a Lorentz boost out of this, or at least a good visual depiction of one.
しかし、これだけでは何の解決にもならないだろう。
But that don't help anything, will it?
まだわからないかい？
You still don't understand?
先ほど言っただろう。装置は時間を歪めると。
I told you before, didn't I? This device can bend time.
まさか。
That's impossible. A smile floated on Inamoto's face. Muttering That's right. Inamoto began typing on his keyboard. The image on the screen changed. This isn't how you do it. Shown there was the image of the y-axis time slanted to the time mark T prime line mark T prime perpendicular to it.
これで理論上は、いや、事実上と言ってもいいかな。2つの地点は同じ時間軸上に存在することになった。
According to this theory, now you can see how it's a matter of fact the 2 points can exist on the same time axis.
先ほどの諸問題は一挙解決。
That solves all the problems we had before in one fell swoop.
量子情報を変換し合うための状態は整った。
The conditions for the transfer of quantum information have been met.
こうして2011年の赤倉岳サークルと2012年の青鷺島サークルは相互に転移を繰り返す。
Like this, the Mount Akakura circle in the year 2011 and the Asogi Island circle in 2012 can transfer back and forth over and over again.
OK?
Okay. The ramblings of a fool. Yeah, it's like, I drew diagrams that kind of looked like Einstein's special relativity, very vaguely, not really. It's like really bad relativity. Correct, ramblings of a fool. A really, honestly, seriously maddening, accursedly unrealistic bunch of crap. However, it was the truth. My own body had experienced it time and time again. No matter how unbelievable it was as mere theory, it is unmistakably the reality. And that's why my comprehension was ready, honestly. Seriously, maddeningly, accursedly being torn apart. My mind is still struggling violently against the very notion.
まだ納得できないようだな。
It seems you still can't accept it.
仕方ない。
Oh well.
では、実証してあげようじゃないか。
Shall I show you proof?
なんだって？
Of what?
時空間転移よさ。
The space-time transfer, of course. No, you won't, because if that happens, Kokoro will show up in this room. Talking to this guy, which doesn't happen when you play as Kokoro.
とは言っても、君たちに起きているような大掛かりなものは無理だがね。
That said, it's impossible to demonstrate a large-scale transfer like what's happening to you.
時空間転移装置のプロトタイプがある。
I have a prototype of the space-time transfer device right here. Kind of going back and thinking about this, he didn't say that he needed to get the events to line up on top of each other in space and time, just in space. So you just need to Lorentz boost into a frame where they happened at the same time and in different places. And then, because then you could have there's actually like a frame where that happens, right? You're not like comparing frames. It's not like you like instantaneously change frames. You actually have a frame defined where this can happen, right? There's always a frame where two events happen at the same time. Every time you have two events, you can find a frame where they happen at the same time, as long as the separation between them is space-like. If it's time-like, you can't, right? So that's another thing we have to worry about here. Then you can find a frame where they're happening at the same time. But that frame, if you're in that frame, you're moving close to the speed of light. And so, you have to move close to the speed of light. Now, with the vector between the shelter cabin in 2011 and Sphia in 2012 be space-like or time-like. And that should be easy to do, because that should be easy to really figure out, because 1 meter is a very, 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 very short amount of time. Or you could think of 1 second as extremely long distance. It's like 3 times 10 to the 8 meters. Right, is a second. That's how long a second is. So the difference in time, 2011 to 2012, is extremely long distance. It's an entire light year of distance. Whereas the difference in space from the shelter cabin and Sphia is less than a light year. So you could tell that the vector points way more in time than it does in space. So it's time-like. So there's no way you're going to find a Lorentz transformation that makes those two events happen at the same time. You're not going to be able to find some speed some incredible velocity you can go where those line up at the same time. Hopefully that back of my palm math was correct, and I didn't make a brain fart there, because I tend to do that whenever I think about math stuff on recording. It just doesn't work. I can't do math in public, people. And the easiest way to argue that it's time-like is just simply saying, if it's possible for a human to be at the shelter cabin in 2011 and then take some public transportation or something, walk to Sphia in 2012, take a boat, and get to Sphia by 2012, then that's time-like, because humans always follow time-like trajectories. So you can find a transformation that puts those in the same place at different times, but you can't make them at different places at the same time. And you have to be moving really fast, right? That would explain the moving part.
それを使って実践すれば、さすがの君も納得せざるを得ないだろう。
I'll show you the device in action, even when you'll be convinced, right? Saying that, Inamoto disappeared through the iron door beside the supercomputer. After a while, he returned holding a complicated-looking piece of equipment.
これが時空間転移装置のプロトタイプだ。
This is a prototype of the space-time transfer device.
ざっと説明しておこう。
This is stupid. I'll give you a rough explanation.
この中央の箱が EPR ペアの発生源。量子的絡み合い状態の粒子を発生させるところだ。
Inside the box, in the middle, is the origin of the EPR pair, where the particles intertwine with each other in a quantum level. Yes, quantum entanglement. The next buzzword thing. So we're going to have two entangled particles, one going to Alice and one going to Bob, right? Or what? Or what's going on? Beam splitters? What's going on here? Oh, there's all kinds of observers.
そしてその両側にある箱がアリスとボブ。送信側と受信側だ。
And those two boxes on either side represent Alice and Bob, the sender and the receiver.
脳書きはいい。見れば大体わかる。さっさと始めてくれ。
Enough showing off. I'll understand once I see it. Get started already.
それは結構なことだ。
That's enough, is it?
ではアリスとボブの中にこの入れたばかりのコーヒーを入れるとしよ
Let's put some nice hot coffee inside Alice and Bob, shall we? 2 cups of coffee were in Emoto's hands. I need to pick up on what Alice and Bob are in Japanese. That'd be interesting. Because I wonder if the translators actually like used Alice and Bob because that was Japanese, or maybe because those are the 2 names you typically use when describing quantum mechanics thought experiments. One was a white, and also relativity as well. The 2 observers, we call them Alice and Bob. Like Alice is on the cart and Bob's on the ground, and Alice is moving relative to Bob at a certain velocity, and Alice shines a light down at the floor of the cart, which is a mirror, and shines back up. Yeah. One was a white cup on a white saucer. The coffee inside had milk in it. The other was a black cup in the black saucer. The coffee inside was black. Inamoto placed the cup in each of the Alice and Bob boxes, then switched on the device. With the dull wine, it began to operate.
う。ちなみにアリスは2011年の赤倉岳、白いコーヒーソーサーは赤倉岳サークル。
By the way, Alice is the Mount Akakura of 2011, and the white saucer is Mount Akakura's transfer circle. We have to say which is which.
白いカップは冬川心を示していると思ってくれたまえ。
So think of the white cup as Fuyukawa Kokoro.
逆にボブは2012年の青崎島、黒いコーヒーソーサーは青崎島サークル。
While Bob is the Asogi Island of 2012, and the black saucer is Asogi Island Circle.
黒いカップは君、有機堂悟を示している。
The black cup will be you, Yukido Satoru.
なるほど。で、
I see. And? Inamoto then brought Bob's coffee cup to his lips.
うまい。
Delicious.
やはりコーヒーは濃いめのブラック。それも入れたてが一番だ。
Coffee is most definitely best black, and freshly brewed at that.
それに引き換え、
And on the other side, Inamoto then put the cup back in place and then took a sip from Alice's
ミ
coffee.
ルクの入ったコーヒーは最悪だ。不純物のせいでコーヒーがコーヒーでなくなっている。
Coffee with milk in it is the worst. Coffee can't even be called coffee anymore once it has been contaminated like this. Frowning, Inamoto returned the cup.
そうは思わないかね。
Don't you agree?
話がそれてるようだが。
This conversation's kind of straying off topic.
そんなことはない。これも重要なプロセスの一部なのだよ。
That's not true. This is an essential part of the process. I have to make my
で、
reference to the previous game.
君はどう思う？コーヒーはブラックか？それともミルク入りか？
So, how about you? Do you enjoy your coffee black or with milk? I'm gonna say with milk. Because I've played ever 17.
ミルク入りだ。当然だろ。
With milk, isn't it
ミル
obvious?
クを入れないコーヒーなんて、ソースのかかってないステーキみたいなものだ。
Coffee without milk is like steak with no sauce. Don't you realize that most people eat steak with no sauce, Satoru? Do people in Japan always put sauce on their steak?
それにブラックは胃にも優しくないんだ。長生きしないぜ、あんた。
They use A1 sauce over there? Which is, you would, A1 sauce you'd think it's like tastes kind of like salad dressing, right? Because it's like a vinegary thing. But if you actually were to put it on a salad, it would just not work. And besides, isn't black coffee hard on the stomach? You won't have a long life drinking that all the time, you know.
大きなお世話だよ。
Mind your own business.
まったく。君とは本当に意見が合わないな。
Oh, you brought this up, and you're telling me to mind my own business. Hey, our opinions don't match up at all. Enomoto said with a bitter
どうだ
smile.
い？君も一口飲んでみないかい？実際に舌で確かめてみてくれよ。
Well, won't you have a sip? Confirm it with your own tongue. Oh, and they're gonna be switched, right?
これをか。
Of this? I asked while pointing at Alice and Bob's coffees with my
あ
finger.
んたが飲んだこのコーヒーを。
The coffee that you drank?
そうだ。
That's right.
心配するな。毒なんて入っていない。私も飲んだだろ
Don't worry, there isn't any poison in it. I drank it too, right?
う。それに私は変な病気は持っていない。妙な意味も込めていない。安心してくれ。
And I don't have any strange illnesses either. My motives are pure. Relax.
まあ、無理にとは言わないが。
Well, I won't force you.
これを飲むことが重要なのか？その実証のために。
Is that important that I drink this just for the sake of proof?
もちろんだ。
Of course. I looked back and forth between the 2 cups of coffee. I'm gonna drink the coffee because I want the plot point. I took a timid sip from each coffee in
どう
turn.
だい？
How is
ア
it?
リスの方。つまりミルク入りの方が断然うまい。
The Alice one, in other words, the one with milk, is distinctively better. I answered, returning the coffee to its place.
なるほど。結構だ。
I see. Very well.
では続けようか。
Then let's continue.
で、どうすればいい？
Continue. What am I supposed to do?
何もする必要はない。ただ、見ているだけでいい。
You don't need to do anything. Just watch. Enomoto and I kept a tight watch over the device.
何も起きないようだが。
It sure doesn't look like anything's happening.
まあ、見ていたまえ。
Now, just watch. Enomoto checked his wristwatch.
そろそろだな。
Any moment now. And at that very moment, Alice transformed. In an instant, the coffee went from white to black. The coffee inside became black as well.
これは。
It
転移したのだよ。
transferred.
では、今アリスに入っているコーヒーは？
Then the coffee inside that cup
そう
is.
未来。今から1分後のボブのコーヒーの情報がアリス、過去へと転移したのだ。
Exactly, the future. The information inside Bob's cup from 1 minute in the future has transferred alongside Alice's.
そしてさらに1分が経過すると、
And just 1 more minute. Another minute passed. Bob's cup transformed as well. The cup and the saucer went from black to white. Now there was milk in the coffee.
過去。今から1分前のアリスのコーヒーの情報が、ボブ、未来へと転移してきた。
Past. The information in Alice's cup from 1 minute in the past is transferred to Bob's, the future.
その通り。さすが物分かりがいい。
That's precisely it. You understand quite well.
これが。
This is
転移。量子テレポーテーションだ。
a transfer. Quantum teleportation.
では、もう一度2つのコーヒーを飲み比べてみたまえ。
Now then, try taking a sip from each of them and comparing them again.
はあ？
Huh?
いいから。飲めばわかる。
Just do it. You'll understand once you drink. Trying to set aside my doubts, I took another sip from each coffee.
今度はどうかな？
How is it now? Alice says, in other words, the black coffee was really good. Inamoto smiled in satisfaction.
どういうことだ
What does that even mean?
わからないかね。コーヒーとカップという物質は入れ替わったのに、うまさという概念はその場に残留している。
No. You don't understand, do you? Even though the material of the cup has changed, the concept of its deliciousness remains.
まるで何かを暗示しているように感じられないか？
Does that remind you of something?
意識
Consciousness.
そう。意識の残留現象。それを意味している。
Yes, the residual consciousness phenomenon.
君たち二人の周りの物質と肉体は入れ替わっていても、意識はその場に残り続けている。
Even if your bodies and surrounding changed places, your consciousness would remain where it was.
以上、実証終了。
Here ends the demonstration.
待てよ味なんてそんな曖昧なもので説明されたって
Wait, trying to explain me something as vague as
味
taste.
覚が当てにならないと？
Are you saying that taste is unreliable?
そうだその時の気分でコロコロ変わったっておかしくない
That's right. Taste is subjective and can change completely depending on how you feel at the time.
まあ、その考え方も否定できなくはないが、
Well, I can't deny that.
先ほども言っただろう。真理は頭で考えても見えてこない。常識という枠にとらわれてはいけない。
I told you before, didn't I? Even if you think about it, the truth won't appear. Don't let yourself be trapped by so-called common sense.
感じたことを素直に受け入れたまえ。
Take in what you feel.
だがしかし
But that's...
では、あえて補足しよう。
Then let me ask a supplementary question.
君がこれまで幾度となくその身で体験してきた現象は何を意味する？どう説明する？
What is the meaning behind the repetitions of this transfer? How can you explain it? I was truly at a loss for words.
こ
Destruction.
れで信じてもらえたかな？
Do you believe me now? Believe, he says. With this, I had no choice but to believe him. It is my nature to be skeptical of things like this, but between everything I'd experienced up until now and the phenomenon that had just occurred right before my eyes, there's no room for doubt. This, no matter what anyone may say, was reality. But, if it's already been decided that this space-time transfer phenomenon is the truth, it creates another new question. And
なぜ
that's
だ
why? I
な
utter.
ぜとは？
What do you mean, why?
なぜこんなことをする必要があったんだ
Why is something like this
こん
necessary?
な時空間転移なんてことを
Why is space-time transfer? Oh, so we can just swap bodies into any bodies we want to. So we can make super soldiers, and if they don't want to obey us and be super soldiers for us, then we can just swap into their bodies and be the super soldiers ourselves. Yes? It's because of this phenomenon, because of this ridiculous phenomenon, how much suffering, how much pain have we had to bear? Being pushed to our limits with the Grim Reaper ever breathing down our necks. Stuck in this ongoing turmoil, Kokoro and I have been driven right to the verge of madness. Inamoto didn't answer. Not saying a thing, he continued staring at me.
答えろよ
Answer me.
どうしてこんなバカなことを
Why would you do such a ridiculous thing? Laughter. He laughed. Master of puppets, I'm pulling your strings. His shoulders shook as he laughed, as though it were the funniest thing he had ever heard.
何がおかしい
Wait, what's so funny?
おかしいさ。非常におかしい。大変おかしい。おかしくておかしくてたまらない。
But it is funny, terribly, extraordinary funny. So funny, I can't help myself.
何せ、君の口からそんなセリフが聞けるとは思っていなかったんでね。
Because you came up with the idea, right? But you forgot you did, so it's funny. Yes. After all, I never expected I'd hear that line from you, of all people.
ああ、失礼。
So this was Satoru's plan to rescue you that he's implementing. And he first got into his plan, forgetting that he made it and what he was going to do once it had started happening. Pardon me.
今の君ならそういうのは当然かもしれないな。
For the current you, such a question is only a matter of course.
では答えよ
Then allow me to
う。この
answer.
時空間転移を計画を行った理由、目的、
This space-time transfer, the reason the entire thing began, the purpose of
そ
it.
れは
That is, to save people, right? Inamoto suddenly raised his finger towards me.
それは君がよく知っていることだろ。
That is something you should know better than anyone, right?
何？
What? My voice cracked. It took all I had to say just that. The reason is something I should know better than
これ
anyone.
が答えだ。
That's my
これ
answer.
以外に言いようがない。
There's no point in saying anything more. It's always to save somebody in the past. Always. Just some weird... Just that's all he said. At that moment, something completely different popped into my mind. Lynn? About the various problems I need to solve. I combined them into one large proposition, R. The personality transfer, the goals I have at both Asogi Island and Mount Akakura, Utsumi and Hotori. I thought. And then I suddenly realized... No, rather than realized, I remembered. I'd forgotten all about it. Proposition R had yet another part. About me, the person known as Yukito Satoru. I didn't know anything about who I was. I.
おい、どうした？
Hey, what is it? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like it. At that moment, I lost myself. As though the strings of a marionette had suddenly been taken by someone else. I lost all control over my That was probably kind of fun to voice act.
落ち着け！静まれ！暴れてもどうにもならんぞ！
Calm down, calm down. You won't solve anything by going berserk.
うるさい！黙れ！
Shut up, shut up.
もう何もかもどうでもいい！
Nothing matters anymore.
何がどうなろうと知ったことか！
I don't care about any of it.
全部
Everything.
全部終わりにしてやる！
I'll end everything here.
何を言っている？おい、正気を取り戻せ！
What are you saying? Hey, snap out of it. Inamoto tried to regain his hold over me.
そんな！
Don't touch me. I snapped his hands away.
俺に触るな！
Or slapped, that is. Don't you dare touch me. I eyed the large machine beside Inamoto. The central part of this facility, the system's supercomputer. I'm sure
これ
that's...
だな。
It's this, right?
これが元凶なんだな。
This is the source, right?
なんだと？
What?
これが時空間転移装置なんだろう。
This is the space-time transfer device, isn't it? No, it's not, actually. That's just the computer.
だったら壊してやる。
Then I'll break it.
壊してやる。ぶっ壊してやる。こんなくだらない茶番なんて終わりにしてやる。
I'll break it. I'll destroy it completely and end this idiotic farce for good. Thrusting Inamoto aside, I struck the supercomputer with a ferocious roundhouse kick. However, it was sturdier than I expected. It didn't even make a dent.
チェ！
Damn. I kicked it twice and 3 more times without hesitation. Let alone dent it, I hadn't even managed to scratch it. This thing sure is durable.
やめろ！やめないか！
Hey, stop it, cut it out. Inamoto pinned me down. He moved to secure both my arms behind my back.
無駄だ！
Give it up.
そんなものを破壊したところで何の意味もない。
Destroying it won't change a thing.
時空間転移は止まらないよ。
The transfers won't stop.
うるさい！離せ！
Shut up, let me go.
邪魔をするな！
Stay out of my way. Wrenching his body with all my strength, I shook Inamoto off. Yeah. Inamoto fell on his back. At that moment, his sunglasses flew off and spun off into the corner of the room.
やめるんだ。
Stop
う
it.
るせえ！
Shut up. I glimpsed the chair out of the corner of my eye. I could smash it with that.
こんなものがあるから！こんなものがあるから！
Because it exists. Because this damn computer
こん
exists.
なものがあるからみんな不幸になるんだ！
Everyone's suffering all because of this damn computer.
くしょーぶっ壊れてしまえ
Okay, damn it, go to hell.
やめろと言ってるだろう
I told you to stop. Enomoto suddenly leaped to his feet, unleashing a deranged scream at me.
私の計画を台無しにするつもりか
Are you trying to ruin all my plans? The next instant, Enomoto blocked my path to the supercomputer with a terrific speed. A chill ran down my spine. I could feel a bloodthirsty aura. Reflexively, I lifted the chair and hurled it towards Enomoto. Enomoto nimbly turned, deflecting the flying chair with one kick.
今の君は危険分子だ。
As you are right now, you are a dangerous variable.
もうこのままにさせておくわけにはいかない。
I can no longer allow you to go freely.
私の邪魔をする不埒者め。
You insolent nuisance. In Enomoto's eyes was the clear intent to kill. He was no longer the calm, collected man he'd been before. Conversely, seeing Enomoto like that forced me to return to my senses. Cold sweat trickled down my back. This is bad. Warning signals lit up in my brain. Enomoto thrust his hand into his breast pocket as he glared at me. A switchblade. Enomoto gripped it in his hand.
非常に不本意だが。
I'd rather avoid doing this, but
やむを得まい。
you've left me no other choice. Yeah, or you could have just explained to him why this was happening and that you were the one who wanted it to happen and why you wanted it to happen. This feeling. It was the same feeling I'd felt before, a killing intent as cold as ice. Was it him all along?
覚悟はいいかね。
Unlikely. Unlikely. But anyway, have you prepared yourself?
有機道悟。
Yukido Satoru.
君を抹消する。
I'm going to erase you. Enomoto suddenly narrowed his eyes.
殺してやれ
I'll kill you! I saturated the microphone. Sorry. Raising the knife high overhead, Enomoto attacked. Immediately reversing direction, I dashed for the door. I had to run. I flew out the door into the basement storeroom. Total darkness greeted me. For some reason, the lights in the basement were off. Had Enomoto cut the power? No, that didn't matter right now. At any rate, I had to get out of here as soon as possible. And the moment I thought that, I tripped over a wooden box. Gah. Damn it. Losing my balance, I fell. The concrete floor rose up before my eyes, as though I were falling in slow motion. Am I going to die? Those words scrolled through my mind. Insanity. Ah. Before I had a chance to notice, everything around me changed. The smells that entered my nostrils, the feeling of the air touching my skin, the temperature, everything had changed. I was on a bed in the shelter cabin. I was lying down, staring at the ceiling. I transferred it to Fuyukawa Kokoro's body. Ah, damn. That awful what awful timing. Was Kokoro alright? She ends up in some interesting stuff. Just to let you know. But I avoided all the bad endings right here when I played as Kokoro, so I got her through. She transferred right in front of a crazed killer. And just as I'd been about to fall, too. I cursed my own worthlessness. I'm sorry, Kokoro. Please, please be safe. Don't let them get you. Don't die. Please survive. I prayed fervently, closing my eyes. So I did the only thing I could. I waited for the time I could return to Sphia. No, I want you to tell them, look out there, get outside the 1 or 10 meter bubble. You could save them all that way. You could suck them into 2012. I was desperate. If Kokoro dies because of me, just the thought made me feel sick to the heart. I took off her wristwatch and checked the time. Present time, 6:45 p.m. In 33 minutes I can go back. And when I do, I can save her. Assuming that she's even still alive. It was the longest 33 minutes I'd ever experienced. I was unable to contain myself. I had to do something.
そうだ。
That's right. Dawned on me. I reached into my pocket. I took out the voice recorder. What I can do for her now is leave a message for her. I have to explain what's going on, so she'll understand everything once she safely returns. I pushed the record button.
心、たった今、俺はスフィアで襲われた。
Kokoro, at this very moment, I'm being chased through Sphia.
襲われた直後に、ここへ飛んできたんだ。
I ended up jumping here right after I was attacked.
頼む。どうか無事でいてくれ。
I'm begging you, please make it out safely.
くそ、手出しできないのが歯がゆい。
Damn it, not being able to do anything is so irritating.
俺のために君の人格が死ぬなんてことがあったらどうやって詫びりゃいいんだよ。
If your personality ended up dying because of me, I don't know how I would ever be able to apologize to you.
腕の一本ぐらいはなくなったっていい。
I don't even mind if I lose an arm.
だからどうか無事でいてくれ、心。
So please, be safe somehow, Kokoro. I spoke with a tone so desperate it almost sounded like I was throwing up blood. I hit the stop button and jammed the voice recorder back into my pocket. I closed my eyes and stood still and waited for the time to arrive. Thinking that Yomogi and Yuni tried to talk to me as I waited. I think that, but I couldn't even hear them. I'm begging you. Please be alright. Kokoro. That's all I could think about. Finally, 33 minutes passed. That was lame. Well, I tried out about the effects, but I said that was lame. Fatal. The scenery shifted before my eyes. I transferred to Sphia. I was still in the basement storeroom. Well, you went up and back down. Stuff happened, but I was frozen in place right in the middle of it. My body was still safe. Kokoro had somehow made it through the danger. I didn't feel any pain in particular. I felt something cold for some reason, but I didn't seem to be injured anywhere. Thank you, Kokoro. No words could possibly express how grateful I am to you. I couldn't even imagine how I could begin to thank her for this. At any rate, I'm so glad it's over. The tension I felt disappeared in an instant. And eventually, my focus shifted from my inner musings to my current surroundings. I gave my body a once-over. Strange. Something strange. What is it? That's right. My left hand. My left hand was gripping some foreign object. Something cold and hard. I slowly shifted my gaze to my left hand. Now, this is weird to me, because Kokoro didn't hold a knife and stab anybody. I was grasping a knife. It was the switchblade Inamoto pulled out earlier. It was covered in blood. Ah. I stared absently at the knife. Oh, was this after, like, the whole, good, the bad, and the ugly thing that happened? And you grabbed the knife at the end of it? What does it mean? 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 I somehow managed to still my shaking hands and took stock of my surroundings. No, that's gonna conceal when he got stabbed? So they're saying that... Wait, so they're saying that, Hotori did stab him. Because we went through both of those characters and none of them did the stabbing, so it was Hotori all along then. He wasn't moving. His head was turned to the side, his eyes were wide open, and his face bore a look of anguish. A pool of blood was steadily growing beneath him. There was no doubt that he was dead. He's dead. No, he's been murdered. By whom? Isn't that obvious? The personality that was in my body while I was at Mount Akakura. Kokoro. Kokoro is the one that killed him? Kokoro? But... Inamoto was about to kill Kokoro as well. It was a perfectly legitimate act of self-defense. Unavoidable. And it's wrong, too. She didn't kill him. Unless there's something I missed in that. In those lines that was subtle, that was tricky, that I glossed over. That's right, she had no other choice. She's innocent. She's not at fault here. That's what I wanted to believe. I returned my eyes to Inamoto's corpse. Looking closely, I saw a countless number of stab wounds punched through it. Okay, so it wouldn't have been like a tricky thing. He would have been stabbed repeatedly. Yeah, so it wasn't Kokoro. So Uni is wrong. It wasn't Kokoro, it wasn't Satoru. It was really Hotori. Uni was just wrong? Is that what you're saying? Which meant that the knife had been thrust into him over and over again. Hey, even in self-defense, there's no need to go this far. From those stab wounds, I sense not an attempt to evade danger, but a clear intent to kill. But why? Is the woman known as Fuyukawa Kokoro really this kind of person? I didn't know. Kokoro, my partner at the moment, I felt a little scared of her. And just as that thought entered my mind, something crossed in front of me. Huh? I was too slow in noticing it. Whoever had just entered had suddenly grabbed the knife out of my left hand. What? Who's there? I frantically looked around. Okay. It was Hotori. Her entire body was covered in blood. Her arms, clothes, and face were all dyed a deep red. Had Hotori been standing right next to Inamoto when it happened? Inamoto had bled, after all, a large quantity of blood, and probably gushed out of him when he was stabbed. In other words, she had been showered with Inamoto's blood. I have to reread the Kokoro part on this, because I don't remember her picking up... I remember her grabbing the knife, but that was like after the three-way confrontation that she got the knife. It wasn't like... But you would think that... Huh. Let's keep reading. Because I thought there was like more swaps in here too. I'm just not remembering it right. That's probably how it was. Hotori, who had snatched the knife away from me, held it in both hands and was playing with it like a favored toy.
Oi!
Hey. An eerie smile formed on Hotori's lips. The remnants of Inamoto's blood were beginning to drip from the knife and onto her hands.
やめろ危ないだろ返せよ
Stop it. Stop it, that's dangerous. Give it back. I have to pause to go use the restroom. And I'm back. Stop it, that's dangerous. Give it back. No, she won't. Hotori wouldn't listen to me. She shifted the knife high on an outstretched hand, as though offering it up as an object of worship. The blood was dripping, dropping down, staining the concrete floor, marking it with the crimson circles. Her actions were extremely unsettling. Hey. Hotori slowly lowered the knife.
なんだ
What is it?
サトルはどっちが好き？
Hey Satoru, which do you prefer? She looked at me with suspicion in her eyes. They were ever so slightly moist, wet, and shimmering. Chills thrummed in my spine.
ねえ、どっちが好き？
Hey, which one?
どういう意味だ
What do you mean?
これで
I mean, we're gonna get some big plot revelation here. Maybe something about the swapping?
刺すのと刺されるの。
Oh, okay. To stabbed or to be stabbed. It depends on if you want something to hurt and leave a scar, or you go to prison. I think I would prefer the hurt and scar. However, I think I would... because that's like doesn't take as long, right? But there are like subtleties to this. If I'm getting stabbed right in the like right through one of my one of those arteries, like the carotid arteries, where I was stabbed right into my femoral artery and I bled out and died, maybe I'd prefer the jail, I suppose.
どっち？
There's also different kinds of stabbing, right? You can get stabbed through your hand, or you can get stabbed through your ribs into your heart. I mean, which stabbing are we talking about here? Which do you prefer?
私は
I.
私は
I definitely. And Hotori's voice faded out. And okay, so then okay, so then this is when the show off is going to happen. The standoff is going to happen right here. Forgot what happens to Hotori at the end of the standoff. Interesting. I presume from reaction after the standoff that she prefers to stab. But maybe there's a twist to it? A transfer. The phenomenon that I'd pretty much been expecting to happen happened. At the time being, both Kokoro and I were safe. But there was a dead man there too. Enomoto Naoya. He'd been killed by Kokoro's consciousness. You both think that, and no, Hotori killed him. But in reality, it was my body that had hacked him up like that. The one holding the knife was me. I'm glad I was saved, but the outcome was rather horrible. It left a bad taste in my mouth. After I saw his dead body, I ended up at the shelter cabin. I wasn't terribly unsettled, but I couldn't just shift my mood right away after I arrived. Lynn was in front of the stove. She was wrapped up in blankets, shivering. In the corner of the cabin, I saw Yomogi sitting atop a bundle of firewood. There was a lot less of it now. Where was Uni? I glanced around the room looking for him. Uni was standing behind me. He was looking up at me with a serious face.
時が来たみたいだね。
It seems as though the time has come, huh? And with that, he left the cabin. No one tried to stop him. The time has come. Enomoto's anguished face had been burned into my mind. I still felt the slippery sensation of blood on my palms. I couldn't shake it off. But I was anxious about Uni. After hesitating for a while, I decided to follow him. After again making sure my palms were clean, I put my hand on the door and quietly opened it. It was clear outside. The whole sky was hung with bright stars. Present time, 8:09 p.m. The moon hadn't yet risen.
サトルだよね。
Satoru? You're Satoru, right? From just beside the entrance. Yuni descended down the path in front of me and stopped there. I nodded silently before joining
夕
him.
方の質問。まだ答えてなかったよね。
I never did answer that question from last night, did I?
ああ、
That's right. Hearing Uni bring up that topic himself was a little perplexing. He stared at me at the twinkling stars with an expression of ultimate understanding on his face.
確かに、サトルの言った通りだよ。
It's just as you said.
僕は2012年の12。
I came from the year 2012.
あれ驚かないの？
Huh? You're not surprised?
ああ。予想してたことだったからな。
Yeah, I was kind of expecting it after all.
じゃあ、こう言ったら驚くかな。
Then, would you be surprised if I said this?
僕は一度も転移なんてしてない。
I haven't transferred. Even once. The person in 2011 in Sphere is just acting?
え？
What?
いや、僕らはって言った方がいいかもね。
No, it better if we say we.
僕とスフィアにいる僕。
Me and the other me at Sphere.
僕らはサトルやココロンと同じように転移を繰り返してるわけじゃないんだ。
Okay, that makes sense. Unlike Satoru and Kokoron, we haven't been transferring over and over again.
でも、一度だけは入れ替わったんだろ？
But you've at least switched once, haven't you?
ううん。入れ替わってないよ。
No, we've never switched.
一度もね。
Not even once.
僕のこの意識は2012年のもの。
My current consciousness is from the year 2012.
そして 僕のこの肉体も1年後の未来のものなんだ。
My current body, too, is from 1 year in the future. Basically, are they just kind of saying that the other version hides? So the 2011 version... So, the one that we see in Sphere... Well, it's in Sphere the whole time. Gets transferred with Sphere back... Gets transferred with Sphere, right? So wherever Sphere goes, he goes. Huh. But he got picked up by the transfer at some point. We'll just continue.
おい待てよ。
Hey, wait a minute.
じゃあなんで未来のお前がこんなところに？
And why is the future you here?
サトル、
Satoru?
雪、触ってみて。
Try touching the snow.
雪？
The snow? Yeah. As he told me, I bent over and touched the surface of the snow. Smooth, powdery flakes. It had fallen only moments before.
この避難小屋の周りはね、ついさっきまで雪が降ってたんだ。
So he's saying the weather does not line up. Okay, so I think I kind of get what he's going to go at here. He's going to say that the first switch, so Uni was in 2012, and he was in the shelter cabin, right? Not the shelter cabin. Okay, I got mixed up. Uni was in 2012, and he was in Sphere. Right? This happened a lot, and the environment is pre-planned. So he was in Sphere in 2012. He had remembered all from the year 2011 to 2012. He was just the 2012 version of Uni, right? Uni walks outside of Sphere in January of 2012. Then the shelter cabin gets switched in. He walks to the shelter cabin, which has now been switched in, right? Then the shelter cabin gets switched back. So everything is normal again. Now he's at the shelter cabin. Then he just kind of goes through the shelter cabin. Then, in the end, he just walks out of the shelter cabin. They get switched. He walks back into Sphere. Switch back. Now he's at Sphere again. And then just continues his life in 2012. So that's how the 2012 Uni works, right? The 2011 Uni, plane crashes. 2011 Uni walks to where the shelter cabin would be, but it switched. So he just walks up to Sphere. And then he's now in Sphere. And he just gets swapped back and forth with Sphere, not ever leaving Sphere. Yeah, so he's changed places at a time when one of the switches have happened. That's what I'm guessing. And then he gets stuck back into the shelter cabin as the last survivor in the end. Like, they all walk out, all the other people walk out into Sphere, like into 2012. They walk out onto the island. And Uni just walks back into the shelter cabin. And when everything gets swapped back to normal again, he gets shoved back into 2011 in the shelter cabin, and he's just there as the only survivor.
So he's
saying the weather doesn't line up, but I saw the weather was lining up, so a whole lot of it, too, a snowstorm. Now that he mentioned it, I finally remembered something. Inamoto's words.
君たちは人格交換。人格が転移をしているんじゃない。
It's not a personality exchange that you two are undergoing. Your personalities aren't what's being transferred.
本当に転移しているのは
What's really being transferred
空間。
is space.
空間自体が転移しているんだよ。
Space itself is being transferred.
正確に言えば、空間が時間を飛び越えて転移している。つまりは
To be specific, it's space that leaps through time and is transferred. In other
時
words,
空間転移だ。
it's a space-time transfer.
待て、ちょっと待ってくれ。頭を整理させてくれ。
Wait, please wait, let me get this straight in my head. Tapping on my temples, I walked around in circles in the snow. Eventually I came to a halt and
そう
spoke.
か。そうだよな。
I see, that's right.
ここは、アオサギ島なんだ。
This is Asogi
あ
Island.
の小高い丘を乗り越えると、海が広がっていて、
If you climb that small hill, there'll be an ocean before you.
月も、まだ出てはいないが、
The moon isn't up yet.
節待ち月よりも、少しだけ欠けた、20日月になっているはずなんだ。
It should look more like a last quarter moon than a waning gibbous moon.
榎
But
本の話が正しいならば、俺の意識は常にアオサギ島に残留したまま、動かない。
if what Inamoto said is true, then my consciousness remained at Asogi Island,
移
unmoving.
動してるのは空間の方で、
But it's transferring in space
と
itself.
いうことは、
Which means
この避難小屋を中心とした半径110メートルのサークル内は、ついさっきまで赤倉岳にあったということになり、
that only this 100 meter circle around us, with the shelter cabin at its core, was at Mount Akakura.
だから雪が、
That's why
このサラサラとした粉雪がここに。
soft powdery snow like this is here.
そういうこと。
That's right.
でも、それは俺の質問とは関係ないだろ
But that doesn't have anything to do with my question, right?
う。俺はこう聞いたんだ。
This is what I asked you.
なんで転移もしていないのに、未来のお前がこんなところにいるのかって。
Why is the future you here even though you've never transferred?
わからない？
Don't you know?
わからないから聞いてるんだろうが。
I'm asking you because I don't know.
そっか。
I see.
実は、それとこれとは関係大ありなんだけどな。
The truth is, those two things have everything to do with each other. And with that, he started explaining. In summary, it was like this. He just walked outside, right? If you think about it, the solution is extremely simple. First of all, until now, I had thought that the very first transfer had occurred on January 11th between 8 and 9 p.m., but there was a transfer before that. We know that. There was a transfer before that happened. But it seemed like that wasn't actually the case. Before that, just once, one complete cycle of the space-time transfer had occurred. It was just a little after 5 p.m. on the evening of the 11th. At that time, there wasn't anyone inside Mount Agakura shelter cabin. Yomogi, Lin, and Kokoro hadn't reached it yet. Right. And then a space-time transfer occurred. The Sphere of 2012 had jumped back to Mount Agakura 1 year ago, and the Mount Agakura of 2011 jumped ahead to the Asogi Island of 1 year ago. At that time, the Uni of the year 2012, the Uni standing in front of me right now, was on the coast of Asogi Island. Correct. He knew that... Yes, okay. So I did understand this before I explained it, at least. He knew that the transfer was going to happen beforehand, entered the shelter cabin alone, and was transported. In the meantime, what was happening at Mount Agakura 1 year ago? The crash of Flight 18 occurred around after 4 p.m. The Uni of the year 2011, Svia's Uni, had been thrown out into the snowfield and was wandering alone in the storm. And shortly before 5 p.m., he had wandered into the Mount Akakura circle. What he found there was Svia. There should have been a large wall all around it, but the Mount Agakura circle was surrounded by a slightly elevated hill. The summit of the hill and the top of the wall are about the same height. As a result, Uni had tumbled down the wall. Through the whirling snow, he saw a white-walled structure in the distance. Marshalling his fleeting consciousness, he managed to reach the building and take shelter there. And then he entered the empty room near the kitchen. Time passed, and a little after 5 p.m., Svia returned to Asogi Island with the Uni of 2011 still inside. And at the same time, inside the shelter cabin, the Uni of 2012 was transported to the frozen Mount Akakura. After that, nothing particularly strange had happened. The two Unis with their original consciousnesses still in their bodies had ridden across on the boat known as space. That was what he meant by never having transferred even once. Although, more accurately, he had never separated from his consciousness even once. In truth, he had traveled back and forth with that space, transfer between 2011 and 2012. Now then, there is still one important matter. The newspaper. Why did a newspaper from the future exist inside the shelter cabin? Because Uni took it in there. Uni had the answer to that as
僕
well.
が持ってきたんだよ。
I brought it with me. When he entered the shelter cabin, the Uni of the year 2012 brought along a newspaper printed on July 4th with him. And reading that newspaper, Kokoro would get this idea. There's a reason why we went to location X. I need to go to location X. And when she went to location X, she exited the sphere. And so a transfer occurred when she wasn't in the sphere, right? And when the transfer occurred when she wasn't, and then she walked back, and then she didn't get swapped because she wasn't in the sphere. So she walked back to sphere. Let's see, how would this have worked? No, we have the helicopter scene, don't we? Yeah, they were going after the helicopter thing. So it could have swapped in there. I'm trying to figure out somehow Kokoro ends up on Asogi Island. Which means she had to have taken a ride. But she can't take a ride because yeah, that's the problem. Because I could argue that Kokoro could have ended up on Asogi Island this way by not taking a ride. She can take a ride because Satoru may be outside the domain, so she can't swap with Satoru anymore. So she just ends up riding. And it breaks the whole thing where she can't move between the zones, right? But you wouldn't really think of so much Satoru not being outside the zone. You would think of Kokoro being outside the zone, because Kokoro went outside the zone to go to location X, and that's got to be important, right? So she went outside the zone to go to location X, and then a swap happened. She would have walked back into Sphere. Well, but she doesn't ever walk into Sphere. And you go, she walks into Sphere, turns around, walks back out onto Asogi Island. It gets swapped, she walks back out onto Asogi Island. Yeah, except she's never on Sphere. She actually walks out from the shelter cabin onto Asogi Island. So she actually ends up riding the shelter cabin into Asogi Island somehow. Yes? Ugh.
どう？これで納得してくれた？
Well, are you satisfied now?
ああ、ある程度はな。
Yeah, to a certain extent.
でも、まだわからないことがある。
There are still some things I don't understand.
何？
Like what?
どうしてお前はそんなにもスフィアのことに詳しいんだ？
Why do you know so much about Sphere?
あれ？まだ気づいてなかったの？
Huh? You haven't noticed yet? Well, he was there. His 2011 version was there. So...
今ここにいる僕は1月17日に救助隊によって発見された僕なんだよ。
The me standing right here is the me that was discovered by the rescue team on January 17th.
雪崩に巻き込まれずに済んだ僕。
The me that had narrowly avoided being caught in the avalanche.
それは知ってるよ。
I know that.
その時から1年の時を経て、お前はアオサギ島の海岸に。
And 1 year after that, you'll go to the coast of Asogi Island.
そして2012年1月11日の午後5時前の時空間転移が発生し、
Then on January 11, 2012, there'll be another transfer, but just before 5 p.m.
お前はアオサギ島に飛ばされてきた避難小屋の中へと。
And you'll be inside the shelter cabin when it jumps away from Asogi Island. I think Satoru is not understanding it.
あれ？なんか変だぞ。
Yeah, he doesn't understand it. So what he meant was, he has to swap. He would have to swap back before they rescue him. I mean,
もしこのまま行けば、今ここにいるユニはまたしても1月17日に救助隊によって発見され、
if things continue like this, the uni here will be found by the rescue team on January 17th
これ
again.
じゃ堂々巡りじゃないか。
You'll just keep going around in circles
無限ループにはまっちまう。
and become an infinite loop. Oh no!
ヒント教えてあげよっか。
Should I give you a hint?
僕はスフィアで起きたすべての出来事を知ってるんだ。
I know everything that happened at Sphere.
11日から17日までその7日間に起きた全部のことをね。
From the 11th to the 17th, I know everything that happened within those 7 days.
つまり未来にいる僕は 過去の僕ってこと。
In other words, the me in the future is the me of the past.
どういうことだ？
What do you mean? It means it gets swapped back, right? The one that was rescued by the rescue team is the one from 2011 who was in Svea. They swap back, is what I'm saying. Uni only laughed softly and wouldn't answer. I wasn't sure whether he got it, but he was holding a single feather in the palm of his hand. A soft, downy white feather. Still has it for a year later, yes. Lethal. I woke up. It's been a slow, gentle awakening, but a sudden jerk as if I'd been shaken. It wasn't. I was curled up in the corner of the kitchen, lying flat on the floor. I didn't know what had happened. My body felt boneless like a rubber doll, as my limbs too leaden and senseless for even the smallest movement.
転移か。
A transfer? My body and consciousness had probably returned to the moment I fell asleep in the cabin. Kokoro had waken up in Svea within the past 33 minutes, and what had happened after that? Why did my body feel so
ま
heavy?
さか
It can't
また
be.
誰かに。
Did someone do this to me? For the time being, I decided to take a look around. I tried to coax some response from my limbs so I could get up. That was just zoomed in carpet? Okay. My legs were unsteady and I swayed dangerously as I tried to stand and failed. As slowly as melting butter, I slid powerlessly back to the floor. I couldn't move in the slightest after that. All the muscles in my body felt flaccid, and when I tried to call out for help, my tongue got tangled up in itself and I couldn't speak a word. Collapsed on my back, I stared up at the ceiling. It was shrinking further and further into the distance, so it was still no longer a grain of rice. The room had stretched itself into a gigantic tower, high enough to brush the heavens. I was trapped at the far end of an ever-lengthening corridor. Just what had happened to my body. I forgot. I should know because I played as Kokoro, but I forgot what happens to her at the end here. Even when faced with such a wondrous vision, my consciousness still had a comparatively strong grip on reality. It was a rather eerie feeling. If the inside of my mind was so clear, then why couldn't my body move? Why was I seeing these visions? I tried to analyze the situation calmly. I just got tranquilized again. First of all, aside from the wound on my arm from 3 days ago, there wasn't any pain. It didn't look like I'd been hit or strangled, nor was I bleeding profusely. I just felt a sensation of nausea coming from my stomach. My throat was numb and stinging. What had Kokoro drunk or been forced to drink? Since this was a medical facility, it wouldn't be odd for drugs with hallucinogenic properties to be stored here somewhere. But why? Anyway, I can't do anything unless I can get my body to move. If I just lay here on the floor like a rubber doll, I'd never find out what happened. But even with that said, what am I supposed to do? For now, I should try throwing up the contents of my stomach. The absence of pain was very likely an indicator that my current condition could be fatal. It's good that I managed to work that out, but it's almost impossible to vomit while lying face up. And if I wasn't even capable of lifting my arm a few millimeters to stick my finger down my throat, nothing could be done. I can gag myself. It's very easy. You try to use a singing technique called the growl. At my breathing with out my fingers. Anyway, my breathing was labored, but I was able to inhale and exhale. My mouth was full of saliva. Probably because my throat was paralyzed, I couldn't swallow or spit it out. It overflowed from the corner of my mouth and ran along my cheek. I must look so pathetic right now. At the thought, a warm tear fell from the corner of my eye. It wasn't a tear of frustration. It was just a psychological phenomenon. For the past few minutes, from my transfer until now, I had yet to blink even once. Oh, physiological, not psychological. A beam of light entered my eyes. It was too bright, I was blinded. The multicolored light spun in a rainbow circle like spinning fireworks. The sparks turned into particles of pure white, fluffy snow came floating down. The endless corridor stretched above me began to shaking, swaying dance. The swarm of white flakes split into 3 swirling spirals and disappeared. From them 3 snow fairies appeared. The tiny fairies slowly opened and began to flap their shimmering wings. They wore no clothes, but a red mark could be seen on their inner thighs. They began to frolic and play like children. A foul stench pierced my nostrils and rose to consume me. I saw a series of wondrous scenes paraded before me, a panoply of chaos which, while grotesque, held a mysterious radiance within. Thoroughly enchanted, I began to forget myself. Adrift in that thick, stinking, strangely beautiful blackness, I slowly began to feel ecstasy eating away at my body. And still the ceiling soared on further and further. No, it might be that the ceiling was getting any further away, but me instead. My melting body was swallowed up by the floor. Man, magic mushrooms. LSD, PCP, sinking into infinitely deep chaos, slowly sinking until I was submerged. Antidote.
ありがとう。おかげでだいぶ楽になったよ。
Thanks, I feel a lot better now. After what felt like an eternity in my comatose state, I had finally regained the ability to move and had gone to the living area. With my hand on the wall for support, I felt like an old
強が
man.
ってるの
Acting tough, are
こ
we?
んな時にまで英雄気取りなのね
Are you still trying to play the hero even after everything that's happened to you? Utsumi's words stung. She probably still had a grudge against me. But even so, when I collapsed in the kitchen this morning, she was the one who carried me back to my room. She was the one who'd given me an antidote to neutralize the effects of the drug. The antidote was supposedly been stored deep inside the dark little room where Inamoto had hidden. Of course, this wasn't first-hand information. Utsumi told me all of this just before. At any rate, she hadn't abandoned me. I was completely defenseless while I was out, she didn't use that opportunity to attack me. And on top of all that, she was nursing me back to health. I couldn't understand Utsumi's true intentions. Leaning toward the window, I let out a sigh. I took my wristwatch from my pocket. The current time was 2 p.m.
あの物質が体内から消え去るまでには最低でも12時間はかかるわ
It will take at least 12 hours for the chemical to completely leave your body. Utsumi continued, standing in front of me.
あなたがキッチンに倒れてたのは午前8時
You collapsed in the kitchen at 8 a.m.
今は
Now
2
it's
時だ。2時5分過ぎ。
2 p.m. 5 minutes passed.
じゃあまだ6時間しか経ってないことになるわね
That would mean it's only been 6 hours.
そうだな。
That's right.
おとなしく寝てたらどうなの
Why don't you just rest quietly until
子
then?
守歌、歌ってくれるか。
Will you sing me a lullaby?
バカみたい
Don't be silly. New Sprite.
それもどうせ冗談が言えるぐらいに回復したっていう意味でのアピールでしょ
You're probably trying to show me that I'm healthy enough to joke,
い
right?
や、本気だけど、
No, I'm serious.
無理しないでよ
Don't strain yourself.
無理なんかしてないさ。
I'm not.
そんなに顔が歪んでるのに
Even though your face is all twisted like that?
元からじゃないか。
Hey, I was born that way.
じゃあ握ってみて
And try squeezing my hand. Saying that, she extended her arm to me. I placed my hand over hers.
握ってって言ってるの
I asked you to squeeze it.
それは触れてるだけでしょ
That's just touching, right? Even if she said that, there was nothing I could do. My fingertips wouldn't do as I told them. I was finally able to flex my fingers just enough to make a fist.
もっと強く
Harder. I was in no condition to be making such fine adjustments. That's right, as Utsumi had said, I was just acting tough. Every muscle in my body had relaxed as though they'd been transformed into jelly or yogurt. By putting my entire body weight against the window, I was somehow able to stay standing, but it felt like I'd fall over if someone so much as breathed on me. And this was 6 hours after I collapsed in the kitchen. Thankfully, I wasn't seeing any more of those weird visions, but my body still felt completely limp.
これは、和解の握手と考えてもいいのかな。
Can we consider this a handshake of reconciliation?
ごまかさないでよ
Don't try to fool me.
握れないなら握れないって素直に言えばいいじゃない
If you can't squeeze it, then say so. I kept silent. What was Utsumi thinking right now? I tried to sense her thoughts through the warmth of her hand. Was she still harboring murderous thoughts against Otori? That very same Otori was now sitting on one of the dining area chairs chatting with Uni. I couldn't make out their conversation from here, but I could see them well enough. Otori and Uni, of course, were both safe. The anniversary of Junikun's death, the 14th, had already passed. But even so, it wasn't as though Utsumi's grudge had wiped itself clean. Furthermore, even though I was currently in no condition to stop her, it looked as though she hadn't laid a hand on Hotori. Why? I had no idea what Itsumi was thinking. However, it looked as though she felt the same.
あなたが何を考えてるのか、私にはさっぱりわからないわ。
I have no idea what you're thinking. She shook her head as though flustered and gently released my hand.
なあ、心に薬を飲ませたのは誰なんだ？
Hey, who was it that made Kokoro take the drug? Which isn't the food, right? I asked as I clumsily rubbed my numb hands.
知らないわよ。見てたわけじゃないもの。
I have no idea. It's not like I saw it happen.
自分で飲んだんじゃないの？
Could she have taken it herself?
心が
Kokoro did?
キッチンの床に空き瓶が転がってたの。
There was an empty bottle on the kitchen floor.
誰かが無理やり飲ませたんだとしたら回収するはずでしょ？
If someone had forced them to take it, they would have taken the evidence with them, right? I don't remember this. What did she drink? I don't think that's necessarily the case. Well, whatever. I can think about that later.
で、その空き瓶には一体どんな薬が入ってたんだ？
And what kind of drug was inside the bottle?
詳しい話はまだ。
I still don't know the details.
そうね。まだ教えてなかったかもしれない。
I don't remember this. What? That's right, I haven't told you yet. Glancing discreetly over to Hotori, Utsumi opened the door to the terrace. She stepped outside. Maybe she didn't want Hotori to hear. I followed after Utsumi. The sky was refreshingly clear. There was no wind, and the sun hanging in the western sky threw bright sunlight down at us. Despite the fact that I was in my pajamas, I didn't feel that cold. But then again, the cold could have more to do with my paralyzed nerves. That could have more to do with my paralyzed nerves than the actual temperature. The cold air felt invigorating against my dulled
空
body.
き瓶は2本あったわ。
There were actually 2 empty bottles, Utsumi said as her exhalations turned into white
1
vapor.
本は DMT の瓶で、もう1本はハルミンとハルマリンの混合溶液を入れたものだった。
One bottle of DMT, and one more containing a solution of harmine and harmaline.
聞いたことある？ DMT って。
Have you heard of it before? DMT, I mean.
いや、
No.
DMT ジメチルトリプタミン。幻覚誘発物質の中でも最も強力な部類に属する薬品。
DMT, dimethyltryptamine, a substance classified as one of the most powerful hallucinogenic drugs. Is that real? I'm going to Google that now. Okay, Google drugs, people. Because I haven't heard of DMT. DMT. Oh, it's a real thing. Okay, cool. Next.
ハルミンとハルマリンの方は、こっちは多分あなたも聞き覚えがあるはずよ。
Yeah, it's a muscle relaxant, and if you take too much of it, probably you can't breathe. As for harmine and harmaline, you've probably heard of them before.
魔を阻害剤のことだから。
They are the MAO inhibitor. Oh. Yeah, I guess this wasn't the food.
魔を阻害剤って。あのネズミが口にした？
The MAO inhibitor, the same as what the rat ate?
そう。ネズミの死因となった物質。
Yes, the chemical that killed it. Utsumi had said it outright, but I couldn't quite wrap my mind around it. Inside my head, I could still see the rat writhing in anguish on the dining area floor. Why had Kokoro introduced such a dangerous drug into my body?
通常 DMT は単体で摂取しても幻覚作用を及ぼさないものなの。
Typically, simply ingesting DMT wouldn't be enough to cause a hallucination on its own.
人体にあるモノアミン酸化酵素が DMT の有効成分を破壊してしまうから。
The oxygen from the monoamine oxidation agent that naturally exists in the body acts to destroy the active ingredient of
ちょ
DMT.
うどチラミンを分解するのと同じようにね。
It breaks down tyramine the same way, after all.
けれどハルミンやハルマリンと併用した場合は別。
However, it's a different story when it's used together with harmine and harmaline.
魔を阻害剤がモノアミン酸化酵素の働きを抑制することによって DMT の代謝は阻止され、
The MAO inhibitor suppresses the oxygenating ability, hindering the metabolism of the DMT.
その結果、幻覚誘発物質は血中に残留することになる。
As a result, a hallucinogenic chemical remains in the blood.
そういうこと。
That's it.
でもわからないな。
But I don't
何
understand.
が？
What?
何もかもだよ。
Anything.
仮に心が自分でそれらの薬品を飲んだとした場合、なぜそんなことをする必要があったのか。
It's a frame up, right? Because she just ate the food, I believe. For the sake of argument, let's say Kokoro really did take the medication herself. Why would she do that?
彼女はそのうちの一つが魔を阻害剤だということを知っていたのか知らなかったのか。
Didn't she know it was a MAO inhibitor when she took it?
知っていたとしてもその危険性まで正確に把握していたのかどうか。
Even if she did she really understand how dangerous it could be?
それから
And then,
あ、悪い。
sorry.
こんなことをあんたに言ってもしょうがないよな。
There's no use in asking you that, is there?
そうとも限らないけど、
That might not be entirely true.
Oh.
Question?
私さっきは自分で飲んだんじゃないなんて言っちゃったけど、
I've said maybe she took it herself before,
もし
but
かしたら今キッチンにいる2人のうちのどちらかが無理やり飲ませたのかもしれないわね。
it might be that one of the other two forced her to.
どちらかって
One of them?
要するにほとりのことが言いたいんだろ。
Or Uni. Because Uni has a plan, right? He's doing things. He could be doing weird things. But the Uni that's at Sphia right now is the 2011 Uni, so he would know the plans, right? In other words, you mean Hattori, right? Utsumi didn't answer. She walked away from me as though trying to evade the question. Quietly bending down, she dipped her hand into the snow collected on the terrace, or it's herself.
繰り返すけど、あなたに迷惑をかけるつもりはないの。
I'm repeating myself, but I don't intend to cause you any
分かっ
trouble.
て。
Please understand. So it was me all along, right? It was Utsumi all along? And then she just kind of acting like she didn't do it. I responded with a question aimed at her hunched back.
やっぱりまだほとりのことを。
Then that means you're still going to?
これでも止めるつもり？
Are you still going to try and stop me?
彼女はあなたを殺そうとしたのよ。
She tried to kill you, you know. She removed her hand from the snow. Patting it dry, she approached me. Nope, she's just framing her up.
万が一薬を飲まそうとしたのがほとりだったとしても殺意があったかどうかはわからないだろ。
Even if it was Hattori who gave her the drug, you don't know whether she intended to kill me or not, right?
殺すつもりだったなら DMT なんかいらなかったはずだ。
If she was trying to kill me, she wouldn't have needed the DMT.
それに2日前にあんたは言ったよな。
Besides, you told me 2 days ago, right?
魔を阻害剤は48時間以内に食べ物を口にしていなければ生体には無害だって。
If you don't eat anything for 48 hours, the MAO inhibitor won't have any effect.
俺はこのスフィアで丸2日間以上何も食べていない。
I haven't eaten anything at Sphia for more than 2 days now.
そのことはほとりも気づいてたと思うが。
I think Hattori knows that too.
そうかしら。
I wonder.
彼女は DID なのよ。
That girl has DID, you know.
人格が入れ替わっていた時のことは知りようがないわ。
She wouldn't know anything when she's not the dominant personality at the time.
人格が入れ替わっていた。
The dominant personality? Those words grabbed me. Hasn't only the Hotori personality appeared in Inubushi Keiko for the past few days? If that's the case, then a different personality could have assumed control without my knowledge.
あなたと同じよ。
It's the same with you.
俺と
With me.
あなただって冬川さんになっている時の記憶はないんでしょ？
You don't remember anything when you become Fuyukawa-san, right?
考えてみて。
Think about
も
it.
しも冬川さんがあなたの代わりにチラミを含有する食品を口にしていたとしたら、
Instead of you, if Fuyukawa-san had eaten food containing tyramine,
死んでたと。
I would have died.
そういうことになるわね。
That's how it is.
だけど
But I didn't die, so that means she didn't do that, right?
だ
But
けど俺はこうして生きてるじゃないか。
I'm alive right now, aren't I?
重要なのは可能性があったのかどうかよ。
What's important is whether the possibility exists.
未必の恋って知ってる？
Do you know what willful negligence is?
実害の発生を積極的に希望ないしは意図するものではないが、
It's a mental state in which, while not consciously intending to do any
自
harm,
分の行為により結果として実害が発生しても構わないという行為者の心理状態。
careless actions can in fact result in it.
明確な殺意がなかったとしても、死んでも構わないという思惑はあったのかもしれない。
Even if there was no clear intent to kill, it might have been that she didn't really care if you did die.
そんな。
That can't.
率直に言わせてもらうけど、あなたが今生きていられるのは奇跡よ。
In all candor, it's a miracle that you're alive right now.
何も食べなかったのはただの偶然なんじゃない？違う？
It's only a coincidence that you didn't eat anything, right? Or am I wrong?
このこと、よく考えてみた方がいいと思うわ。
You should think about this very carefully. Mitsumi bent over again to scoop up more snow. She picked up a handful and flung it away, tracing an arc with her eyes. There was no wind, and a thin mist of snow drifted like a veil in the air.
寒くなってきたわね。
It's gotten colder.
戻りましょう。
Let's go back. Without waiting for a reply, Utsumi disappeared into the building, leaving me behind. I scooped up the snow just as Utsumi had. I tried to grab it, but just as before, my fingers were completely numb. After returning to my room, I trotted over to my bed and flung myself down. DMT, the MAO inhibitor. Did Hotori make Kokoro take it? Or was it Kokoro herself? Why? To what end? Willful negligence? If that was the case, then who had willfully done it? Incoherent thoughts flitted through my head. Last night, the man calling himself Inamoto had died. The idea of Inamoto being the one trying to kill me did pass through my mind. But the MAO inhibitor, assuming that my body consuming it was the result of willful negligence, then just like before, if someone trying to kill me. Was that it? If so, then there's no way the late Inamoto could have done it. This would mean that there was a chance Inamoto had been completely uninvolved in the past attempts on my life. Was the true culprit elsewhere? I let out a sigh. I had to leave a message for Kokoro. Even one line would be fine. Who was it that made you take the drug? But the moment I decided to do that and went to get up, I got transferred. Oh. The twins. Miracle child. A dense ocean current coiled around me as if to lap over my whole body. I felt as if I were being embraced by a sea teeming with coacervate. Oh, are they gonna do like I got body swapped with the fetus? I've had this dream before. The primordial sea. I can no longer tell where my own existence begins or ends. I felt as if this whole vast sea were myself and that there were no singular entity in existence here. My surroundings were completely saturated by a dazzling red light, a rhythmic sound, and a sweet scent that felt as though it would dissolve. I felt I was drowning in this comfortable warmth. Right, you got body swapped with the fetus. Which doesn't make... Okay. Cold. I immediately felt an intense cold cutting through me. A transfer? I understood right away. In Kokoro's body, was curled up in a bed in the shelter cabin, wrapped up in blankets. My arms hugged my shoulders. No matter how much I willed them to, my arms and legs wouldn't stop shaking. It was already beyond shivering. I was convulsing spasmodically, the whole body trembling uncontrollably. The cold assailed me from all sides, rattling my bones and threatening to crush me. Everything in my mind before the transfer, the DMT, the MAO inhibitor, was all blown away in this instant. All that mattered right now was preserving my own life. Everything else was a mere luxury. I had to overcome this. That's what I wanted to do, but my head wasn't working properly. Even my blood had frozen in my veins. No oxygen or nutrients were nourishing my brain. Come on, calm down. Calm down, calm down. Think, just think. But I'm just thinking about thinking, getting nowhere. Worthless, empty thoughts swirled in my head. Cold, 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 cold. I'm going to lose it for real if this keeps up. I was in a dangerous situation, walking the thin line between reason and instinct. I hung my head and continued struggling against the unwieldy desires budding inside me. A life or death battle. And before long, I felt the temperature inside the cabin rise a little, but only a little. My frozen body slowly began to flow through my frozen blood slowly began to flow through my body again. The cold coiling around my spine finally loosened. It was still painfully cold, but somewhat better than before. My mind, too, gained a little leeway to think. Raising my head, I looked around the room again. My field of vision expanded. I noticed something that I hadn't been able to earlier. Yomogi, Lin, and Uni. For the first time, I realized they were all there. They were scattered around the room and shaking as though they were on the verge of death. If it weren't for their shivering, I'd have taken them for dead. Other than that, none of them moved in the slightest. Their pupils were dry and hollow like clouded marbles. The breath escaping their lips was thin, frail, and shallow, as though each one could be their last. I was struck by how much they'd changed. How could they have fallen apart so quickly in one night? What in the world happened to them during such a short period?
どうしたんだ
What's wrong? They ran out of food,
何
right?
があったんだよ
What happened? The cold may have abated, but my numbed lips wouldn't return to normal so easily. I asked them in a voice as dried out as desert wind. But nobody said anything. Yomogi simply stared back at me with cloudy
ス
eyes.
トーブは
What about the stove?
火ついてないのかよ
Did the fire go out? I crawled frantically out of the bed to confirm it. I opened the door to the stove and peered inside. Only blackened charcoal remained.
なんでこんなことに
How did this...
燃料はどうしたんだ
What happened to the fuel?
テーブルや椅子を薪にしたんじゃなかったのか
Didn't you chop the table and chairs for firewood?
有機道くんだね。
Yukido-kun, I presume.
この状況見ればわかるだろ
You can understand what's going on just by looking, can't you? A cracked voice escaped from Yomogi's emaciated
こ
body.
の状況って
What's going on? I quickly looked around me, or quietly. All the firewood that had been piled up in the corner of the room was gone. Only the axe sitting against the wall
う。もう
remained.
燃やすものは何もないんだ。
There's nothing left to burn.
小屋を壊すわけにはいかないしね。
It's not like we can start tearing down the cabin. Why not? His voice brimmed with hopelessness. You have ladders you can use.
そんな
No way. I peered into the stove again. I reached a hand in to feel the charcoal, not a trace of warmth. The cinders were ice cold. 2 more days until the rescue team arrives. In this cabin, having finally run out of fuel, they would have to survive 2 more long, cold nights. Can they really hold out until then? If they at least had some rations. If only there was something for them to eat
そう
somehow.
だ食料だ
That's right, the rations.
食料はまだ残ってるんだよな
You still have rations left, right? I said, turning to face them. Yomogi answered softly.
ああ、
Yeah,
少しだけなら。
just a little.
どこにあるんだ
Where are they?
食べるつもりか
You're gonna eat
い
them?
やそういうわけじゃない
No, that's not it.
どのぐらい残ってるのか知りたいだけだ
I want to know how much is left.
君が持ってるはずだよ。
They should be with you.
俺が
Me.
食料の管理は君に、冬川さんに任せてあるんだ。
We entrusted the rations to you, to Fuyukawa-san. The moment he said that, I rushed back to the bed. The bottom bunk. The blankets I'd thrown off earlier were all over the place. When I pulled them back, a cylindrical object rolled onto the bed. From the writhing of its surface, I knew at a glance that it was a can of hardtack biscuits. I tried opening the lid. It was empty. I found nothing resembling food inside. Just countless crumbs all over the bed.
なんだ
What's this? I used a fingertip to pick one up. Crumbs of
どうしたん
hardtack.
だい
What's wrong? I heard from over my
いや
shoulder.
なんでもない
No, it's nothing. I frantically covered the empty can and the crumbs with a blanket as a temporary measure. I looked over my shoulder with what I hoped was a calm expression. Yomogi inclined his head suspiciously. Before I could notice what was on the bed, I quickly got up and moved away from it.
見ただろう。あれで全部なんだ。
You saw it just now, right? That's
他
all.
に食べられるものはないんだ。
So it was already eaten. So... But Kokoro said she was not hungry. So she ate it, right? Oh no. Oh, this is getting weird. We have nothing else left to eat.
そうか。
I see. My voice sounded dangerously shrill. I intended to behave naturally, but my throat felt dry and cramped. If I kept talking to him, it'd all be over. I turned away to crouch in front of the stove. The cold stove that held no flame. What the hell? What the hell were you thinking, Kokoro? I screamed in my mind. I covered my face with my palms and furiously scrubbed at it. I didn't want anyone to see the face I was making. As my hands still over my face, I began to think. She didn't eat them, though. First, those scraps. Yomogi said that Kokoro was the one in charge of the rations. But those vital rations had vanished, leaving nothing more than crumbs behind. Why? No need to think about that one. Kokoro must have eaten them. Now that I think about it, I haven't felt truly hungry since I transferred. The other three had particularly wasted away, but I can still move around the room. My body is the only one with any energy left. Kokoro, why'd you eat them all? Rapid succession, we have like two things that don't make, like, two eatings that don't make sense. One is somebody in Satoru's body drinking poison. Someone in Kokoro's body eating the rations. There's a third person. There's a third swapper. Someone's also swapping. But then the whole swap thing relies, like, if you take Inamoto's stuff, that it's actually, and Uni's stuff, that you're just transferring the space, in order to have a third person swapping in, then you need to, like, somehow, it doesn't jive. Kokoro, why did you eat them all? Because we have someone, like, neither of them witnessed the stabbing, right? Neither of them witnessed the drinking of the AoE inhibitor and the hallucinogenic stuff, the DMT. Neither of them witnessed the eating of the hardtack. Was your hunger so impossible to bear that you couldn't take it anymore? Driven by instincts that had overwritten your reason? So Kokoro took the rations and... But isn't that just too cruel, Kokoro? The fact that everyone entrusted their supplies to you meant that they trusted you, right? And you double-crossed them? I didn't know you had it in you to do such a thing. Suddenly, the events of last night resurfaced in my mind. That scene I witnessed at the basement of Sphia. The slaughtered corpse of Inamoto. Yeah, there's like a third person. There's a third person. My left hand firmly clutched that blood-stained knife. Come to think of it, Kokoro was the one who killed that man so brutally. If we assume that she did that time was a self-defense, then this is an emergency measure. But the law has nothing to do with this anymore. In a crisis like this, such pithy justifications is of no use whatsoever. Rather, because we've been driven up against the wall like this, our regard for humanity and morals needs to be that much higher. Isn't that right, Kokoro? Yeah, what in the world happened to you? What changed you this much? Change? Maybe that wasn't it. Maybe the woman called Fuyukawa Kokoro had been capable of committing such terrible acts from the very beginning. The state of the corpse went well beyond the domain of justifiable self-defense. Even though everyone entrusted you with the rations, you turned the tables on them and ate them all. The more I think about it, the less I understand Fuyukawa Kokoro. I want to believe in her. I want to have faith in her. But, hey Kokoro, just what should I do? Grasping at straws now, I took out the voice recorder. No new messages. How discouraging. I couldn't think of anything to say to her from here. I heaved a sigh and put the recorder back. I checked the time on the wristwatch on my right wrist. Present time 3:15. I can't say for any accuracy what time this transfer occurred. Yeah, I should be in the shelter cabin for a period of 33 minutes. When will the next transfer occur? 5 minutes from now? 10? 15? Since the interval of time is so vague, it's pretty hard to tell. An ominous atmosphere hung over the small room. It reeked of decay that dogged our every footstep. I suddenly choked. I needed fresh air. Without stopping to consider the consequences, I headed for the door.
死にたいのか？
You want to die? As I put my hand on the doorknob, Yomogi uttered that single
死ぬ
sentence.
前には戻ってくる。
I'll come back before it gets to that. And with that reply, I opened the door. Maybe he didn't even have the strength left to stand, but Yomogi made no other move to stop me.
え
Eh?
晴れてる。
It cleared up. A refreshing, cloudless winter sky. A thin, light blue film covered the sky. The sun, already sinking into the west, cast an intense light over everything. Sinking into the west? I thought this was like morning. Reflected across the vast snowfield, it spread across the silver powder that surrounded me. I squinted against its brilliance. The glittering sunlight woke a memory buried within me.
君たちは人格交換。人格が転移をしているんじゃない。
It's not a personality exchange that you are undergoing. Your personalities aren't what's being transferred.
本当に転移しているのは
What's really being
空
transferred
間。
is space.
空間自体が転移しているんだよ。
Space itself is being transferred.
正確に言えば、空間が時間を飛び越えて転移している。つまりは、
To be specific, it's space that leaps through time and is transferred. In other words,
時空間。
the space-time transfer cleared up the weather. That's right, that's it. How could I forget something so important? This isn't Mount Akakura, we're on Asagi Island. My consciousness never leaves the Asagi Island of 2012. So that means the sky I see right now is the sky seen from Asagi Island. Of course, it'd be sunny. Because the sky I saw at Svea is the same sky I'm looking up at right now.
そうか。
I see.
気温が上がったのも、このせいだったのか。
That's why the temperature rose, too. It said the magazine I found in my room, and it said in the magazine I found in my room at Svea. From the 15th until daybreak of the 17th, the whole of Mount Agakura was in the midst of a severe storm. In short, just before this transfer occurred, the shelter cabin had been exposed to an intense cold. I couldn't move right after the transfer because of the cold. I understood. I've grasped the situation now. This is the Asogi Island of 2012. My consciousness never jumped across here. Time, rather, an area of 110 meters in radius, with the cabin at its center, was transported to this world. Then what should be my next move? Simple. I leave the three of the shelter cabin out of the circle. If I do that, then we won't be dragged into the space-time transfer anymore. That means they'll end up in a year in the future. But now isn't the time to be worrying about the law of cause and effect. A life is irreplaceable. What would happen if I sent them back to Mount Akakura of 2011? Without food or fuel, it's hard to survive on a snowy mountain for very long. And for the sake of argument, even if they could hold out until the 17th, according to history, all that awaits them is a horrible death buried alive in that avalanche. No, wait. Wait. Aren't I forgetting something important here? Uni. He's not the Uni of 2011. Though he may act that way, he's not. The Uni here, both in mind and body, is from the year 2012. He told me himself last night, no mistake about it. But why he lied about it, and why he returned to the shelter cabin like this in the first place, I still don't know for sure. What should I do? How long until the next transfer? Whatever the case, I'm afraid I don't have time to press him for an answer. Do I leave him alone and get everybody else out first?
ああ、くそ
Oh, damn it. I've got no time to spare. Still unsure what to do, I reached for the cabin door. And made a... And that's the last transfer in a while.
Uni!
He lost his chance. Uni. I yelled as I rushed into the room. Wait a second, this room is just rushed into wasn't the cabin. I stopped and took a look around me. This is Hotori's room.
助けて
Help!
助けてよホト
Help me, Hotori.
リどうしたの
What's wrong? Before me were Uni and Hotori. Yuni was hiding behind Totori, peeking out from behind her back. He looked scared out of his wits. As if to protect him, Totori would spread her arms wide. A transfer.
何があったのユニ君。
What happened, Yuni-kun?
サトルが
Satoru, he
僕に襲いかかろうとして。
tried to attack me. Satoru.
待ってくれ、ユニ。
Wait, Yuni. I hurriedly interjected.
何があったのか知らないが、それは俺じゃない。
I don't know what happened, but that wasn't me.
俺のしたことじゃないんだ。
I wasn't the one who did it.
おそらく、心がお前に何か。
It's probably Kokoro.
そんなことどうでもいいんだよ。
Who cares about that?
心だってお前の中の一部じゃないか。
Isn't Kokoro just a part of you?
もう僕のことはほっといてよ。
Leave me alone already.
追いかけてこないで。
Stay away from me.
ユニ。
Yuni.
なるほどね。
I see.
なんとなく事情は分かったよ。
I think I more or less get it now. Otori extended her right arm. She pointed her index finger at the door. And her next words were,
出てって、サトル。
Get out, Satoru. Her cold tone left no room for debate.
でも、
But
言い訳なんてしないで。
no excuses.
何も聞きたくない。
I don't want to hear it.
この子がどうして怯えてるのか分かんないの？
Don't you get why he's so scared? I don't. How could I? Because I didn't do anything. But it would be useless to object now. I should leave for the time
分かっ
being.
たよ。
I understand. I said, my shoulders drooping. Having decided to leave, I turned around. I extended one foot toward the door, but the moment I did, before I knew it, my body was hurtling toward the floor, and into slow motion as though I were on the surface of the moon, my surroundings slowly tilted. My face slammed against the doorknob. It sank into my cheek. My body bent inward like a sheet of plastic. And from that position, my face slid slowly and agonizingly down the surface of the door. I hit the floor with a thud. Right then, all movement stopped. Again, is this the third person? Before I realized I was lying next to the door. My cheekbones and teeth hurt like hell. My astonishment overwhelmed the pain. Why was I staggering and unable to support my body like this? Why didn't I throw out my arms by reflex to protect myself?
何やってるの？
Huh? What are you doing? Her scornful voice trailed me. Really, what the hell am I doing? I took some time for me to remember. I'm always confused after a transfer. But I finally brought myself back up to speed on the situation. Right, I forgot. My body was still being racked with DMT. Insertion. Having somehow managed to reach my room, I was now resting on my bed. The effects of DMT were slowly beginning to subside, but I still felt like a rubber doll. If I concentrate with all my might, I could manage to stand or even walk. However, if I lost focus for even a second, perhaps I became worn out faster than a pair of socks worn by 3 days and 3 nights straight. Movement requiring the use of my reflexes was especially slow and painful. Right now, if you were to throw so much as a paper bag at me, I'd only flail like a fish out of water, unable to avoid it. According to Itsumi,
あの物質が体内から消え去るまでには最低でも12時間はかかるわ。
it will take at least 12 hours for the chemical to completely leave your body. So I can't hope for a complete recovery until around 8 p.m.
たく、参ったな。
Sheesh, just perfect. I can't go and look for the culprit like this. Anyway, the only thing I could do now was wait for the DMT to be broken down and expelled from my body. And the one upside of having my reflexes impaired like this is that time seems to be progressing frightfully fast to me. On the digital display on my wristwatch, it just hit me. We haven't figured out how to get to the top of the clock tower yet, right? On the digital display on my wristwatch, the passage of each second was considerably faster than normal. I suddenly noticed that the sky had overflowed with that madder red hue. Present time 3:55 p.m. 4 hours until 8. I put the wristwatch back in my pocket and closed my eyes. I guess I could go to sleep. Or at least I tried to, but just then I heard the door open. I opened my eyes in a flash and swiveled my neck to the side. There stood Hotori.
なんだよ、いきなり。
What is it now?
ユニはどうしたんだ？
Something wrong with Uni? I went to get up as I spoke. However, my body wiggled like a dancer desperately performing some strange ballet. I managed to right myself and settled back down on the bed. I bent forward and crossed my arms over my knees. Yee. Amused at my pathetic condition, Otori laughed. She wore a complex smile of neither scorn nor pity. Smack, smack. What's that weird sound she's making? She eating hard candy or something? She backed up against the open door to shut it, then cast a sidelong glance at me. She seemed to be holding something behind her back. I could faintly see the edges of something like a magazine sticking out from behind her.
なんで黙ってるんだ
Why aren't you saying anything?
別に
No reason.
別にって
No reason, huh?
じゃあ何しに来たんだよ
Then what'd you come in here for?
殺されに
To be killed.
は
Huh?
殺されに来たのかもね。
Maybe I'm here to be killed. I didn't quite get what she was trying to say. I knit my brows together as I gazed at her, trying to figure her out.
私のことも殺したいんでしょ？
You want to kill me too, don't you? Well, this is a misplaced modifier. Does it mean you want to kill me just like you killed the other person, or you want to kill me just like Atsumi wants to kill me? Me too, kill her. That too worried me, but for the time being I answered. Why would I want to kill you? I'm not gonna say, yeah, sure I do. What would that... That's a troll. I guess you could... Someone, I guess, could pick that, because they're sitting here thinking, like, maybe there's some really complicated plot machinations I should have gone through in my head, and I should have problem-solved this, and I should have deduced at this point that we should kill Hotori. That's the answer, and therefore I should pick that. I don't know why you come up with that, but I know that... But I'm suspicious that you're supposed to, so I'm going to click it. Right? But I'm not that person, and so I'm not going to click it.
なんでほとりを殺さなくちゃいけないんだ
Why would I want to kill you?
そんなことしたって何の得にもならないだろ
What would I gain from that?
じゃあ、あの男を殺したのは得になるから？
So you killed that man because you had something to gain? Listening to her, I finally understood the meaning of that too. She thinks I'm the one who murdered Inomoto. Though I'm getting pretty fed up with this, I answered
あれ
her.
は心のしたことだ
That was Kokoro.
俺の意識が直接手を下したわけじゃない
My personality isn't directly responsible for it.
だとしても責任は悟にあるわけでしょ？
Still, you're the one who did it, aren't you? We actually don't... his body likely did do it. But we don't know who in his body did it. Because Kokoro didn't do it.
悟の体がしたことなんだもん。
Because it was your body.
悟が償わなくっちゃ。ね？
Don't you have to make up for it somehow?
確かに普通はそうだよな
Ordinarily, you'd be right.
普通の状況ならそうだ
Under ordinary circumstances, that is.
でもな
But you know what?
俺は今非日常的なとんでもなく特殊な状況に置かれてるんだ
Right now, I'm in an extraordinary and ridiculously unique
一
situation.
般的な基準は俺には当てはまらない
The normal criteria don't apply to me.
どう特殊だっていうの？
Unique how?
話しても信じてもらえないよ
You wouldn't believe me even if I told you.
そんなのわからないじゃん。
You don't know that for sure.
もしかしたら私も同じ境遇に巻き込まれてるのかもしれないわけだし。
I might have been caught up in the very same situation. There is some evidence of that, yes. That you go mute every time there's a swap. For an instant, all my thoughts ground to a halt. The same situation? What the?
ねえ、教えてよ、どう特殊なのか。
Come on, tell me, unique how?
もしかして、
Give
霊に
this
取り
to
つかれ
me.
ちゃってるとか？そういうやつ？
Like being possessed by some kind of spirit? Is that it?
うんまあ似たようなもんだ
Sorry, I talked over the voice line there. Well, yes, something like that. I answered perfunctorily. I'm way more concerned about why she said the same situation. I wanted to ask her about it, but I kept my mouth shut. But,
そっか。やっぱりそうなんだ。
I see, so that's how it is.
冬川心って女の子、死んじゃってるんだもんね。
The woman called Fuyukawa Kokoro is dead, right? Those words were like a blow that sent everything I had thought up to that point flying away, leaving no trace. A cold shiver ran along my spine. I held my breath and let out a raspy voice.
どうしてそんなこと
Why? Why are you...
これだよ。
It's this. She tossed me the thing she'd been hiding behind her back. It hit my shoulder and fell to the ground with a thud. I could neither catch nor dodge it. With my body like this, even picking it up was a difficult task. But there was no need to waste my strength. What had fallen to the floor was, as I suspected, a magazine. In the front cover was a printed heading, Current Events Weekly, July 21st.
なんでお前がこれを
Where did you...
見つけたの。
I found it.
マットレスの下に隠してあるのを。
Hidden under the mattress.
人の部屋勝手に漁んなよ。
Don't go rummaging around people's rooms like that.
いけなかった
I shouldn't.
当たり前だろ。
Of course not.
ってことは、メモ用紙に書いてあったことも読んじゃまずかったのかな
I saturated the mic again. Which means I shouldn't have read the stuff written on that notepad either. My body slumped, and I hung my head. That notepad held every conversation I had with Kokoro since the beginning. We wrote everything about the personality exchange, about the person out to kill me, and the part where I'd written Hotori might be the culprit.
サトルってなんていうか
Satoru, how do I say this?
本当に言っちゃってる人なんだね。
He's dead, you know.
あそこに書かれてたこと読んでわかったよ。
I understood after I read it.
捉えようによっては一人交換日記だもんね。
The way I see it, what you're writing is just an exchange diary with yourself.
ま、そんなこと私には関係ないからどうでもいいんだけど。
Well, since it has nothing to do with me, I don't really care.
それよりも
But more importantly,
サトル誰かに狙われてるみたいじゃん。
Satoru, it looks like someone is after you.
で、犯人のことなんだけどさ、
About this culprit.
小鳥という人格が無関係だとしても、彼女の中には凶暴な別の人格が潜んでいるのかもしれない。
You wrote, even if the Hotori personality is uninvolved, there's another more ferocious personality lurking within her.
可能性は高いと言えるだろ
You can probably say that the probability is
う。
high.
なんてことが書いてあったりしたけど、
Or something like that.
でもね、私は全く関係ないから。
But you know what? I'm not even the tiniest bit involved in this.
サトルなんか殺しても何の得にもならないし。
Since I have nothing to gain by killing you, Satoru.
でしょ
Right?
だけどお前は昨べ刺すのと刺されるのどっちが好きって。
But didn't you say to stab or to be stabbed, which do you prefer last night?
そんなこと真に受けちゃってるの
Did you take that seriously?
あんなのただの冗談に決まってるじゃん。
That was just a little joke.
それとも何
Or perhaps,
サトルは本気で私が犯人だってそう思ってるわけ
do you really believe I'm the culprit, Satoru? No. I don't think she did it. Because the same person likely ate the hardtack. Did she eat the hardtack? Did she go to the shelter cabin? That would like she like walked outside. This which happened. She went to the shelter cabin, walked back out. That's possible, right? But I'm gonna say no.
いや
No. I shook my head.
それって私のこと信じてくれるって意味
Or perhaps this means you trust me? This time I nodded.
素直でよろしい
I see. I like it when you're honest.
それじゃあ犯人のこと教えてあげちゃおっかな
Well then, shall I tell you about the culprit now? Yeah?
私心当たりがあるんだよね
I picked up a couple of clues.
真犯人が誰なのかなんとなく分かっちゃったんだ
I more or less understand who's really behind it. I brushed the bridge of my nose with a fingertip. I peered into Hotori's eyes. I chose my next words
それ
carefully.
は誰なんだ
And who might that be? Hotori pointed straight at me and declared it.
あなた
You. My heart stopped. I was so dumbfounded I forgot to breathe. My field of vision began to distort.
何言ってんだよお前。
He's the one who came up with the whole plan that involved the swapping. Like, he's the one who suggested, right, to do the space-time swapping. But is he the one who suggested to do the killing, that someone should be after him as well? What the hell did you just say? I managed to wring my answer from my paralyzed
サ
throat.
トル、今朝ダイニングの床に倒れてたでしょ。
Satoru, didn't you collapse in the dining area this morning?
マオ阻害剤と DMT 飲んじゃったんだよね。
You ingested the Mao inhibitor and the DMT, didn't you?
あの薬を飲んだのはあなた自身なんだよ。
And the person who took them is you yourself. Hotori continued. Putting it all together, this was her explanation. First off, it seems the MAO inhibitor and the DMT belonged to Hotori in the first place. This morning, after she woke up, Hotori suddenly felt uneasy about Inamoto's corpse and came down to the basement. There, she says, she discovered the dimly lit room. The door had been left open after the scuffle with Inamoto. She went inside. There's another room through there housing a generator and several shelves of different medications. After discovering the Mao inhibitor and the DMT, she took them back to her room. It's beyond me why she wanted to do that, but needless to say, she did it anyway. She's quite familiar with both the Mao inhibitor and DMT. She knew what would happen if she took them herself, too. And after fasting for 48 hours, she wanted to try experiencing their effects firsthand. Oh. In other words, this is what happened. She left the small room carrying the 2 bottles close to her chest. She climbed the stairs back up to the dining area. Her very explanation grew a little vague. Here, her explanation grew a little vague.
私そこで意識を失っちゃったの。
I lost consciousness
次
there.
に気がついた時には目の前にサトルが倒れてた。
So Satoru injected her or something. When I came to, I saw Satoru lying on the floor
すぐそばには2本の空き瓶が転がってて、
with the 2 empty bottles right next to you.
だから私は
So she assumed I ingested the chemicals, it seems. Immediately after, Itsumi came out of her room and Otori promptly ran away, she said. If Itsumi had found out she'd stolen the drugs, things could have gotten ugly.
ちょっと待ってくれ。
Wait, right there.
じゃあお前はそれを直接目撃したわけじゃないんだな。
Then you didn't witness it directly, did you?
でも周りには誰もいなかったし、
But there wasn't anyone else around.
サトルが飲んだとしか考えられないよ。
I can only think that you drank them, Satoru.
あ、ごめん。
Sorry.
サトルじゃなくて心って人格のことね。
Not Satoru, but the Kokoro personality, right?
心が
Kokoro did. I asked that almost as a reflex, but I'd already anticipated it. If Otori is right, then of course it was the other personality, Kokoro, who drank it.
だから多分他の犯行も全部心って人格がやったんじゃないかなって。
So I figured that meant all the other crimes were probably the work of the Kokoro personality as well. No, you're wrong, that's wrong, I thought immediately. In the bathtub incident, sure, Kokoro might have thrown herself in. But what about the clock tower? That was before the space-time transfer had occurred. No, it wasn't. Something occurred before then. More over my left arm. No, there was a transfer. That couldn't be explained either. I resolved myself and tried asking Hotori about it. She answered
自
readily,
傷行為だったんじゃない？
Wasn't that just self-mutilation?
サトルってこう言っちゃなんだけど、頭普通じゃないでしょ？
Satoru, I hate to say it, but don't you have a couple of screws loose?
サトルの中にはそういう衝動があるんじゃないのかな。
Couldn't you have those impulses dwelling inside you?
だから自分で自分の左腕をバッサリと。
So you were the one who seized a knife in one hand, aimed at your other arm, and then with a single
ああ
stroke.
ごめん、また間違えちゃった。
Sorry, I made the same mistake again.
サトルじゃなくて心がってことね。
Not Satoru, but Kokoro, right? My left arm? That's right, the wound was only on my left arm. But Kokoro is left-handed. That's a contradiction. As I lost myself in my thoughts this way, Hotori was
それ
continuing.
からバスタブのこと。
And about the
サ
bathtub.
トル、湯船の中で溺れてたんでしょ？
Satoru, you nearly drowned in your tub, right?
もしかしたら心の人格の中には自殺願望みたいなものがあるんじゃないのかな。
But if the Kokoro personality has suicidal impulses or something,
自傷と自殺。
self-mutilation and suicide.
とにかく自分自身に対する破壊衝動、破滅衝動みたいなものがサトルの中にはあって、
Anyway, Satoru, the desires for self-annihilation and self-destruction lie within you.
じゃない、心の中にはあって。
No, in Kokoro. So that's what she meant by would you rather stab or be stabbed. In Kokoro. As if she were implying it were in my heart and mind. Or maybe that's exactly what it was. The real criminal isn't Kokoro, but my mind. My mind. My mind is right-handed. My head is blank. I couldn't think.
ところでサトル、
By the way, Satoru,
よかったら感想を教えてくれない？
mind telling me your impressions? I quietly looked up. Not uttering a word, I tilted
ど
my
んな
head.
感じだった？あの薬。
How did the drug feel? Otori slowly drawing nearer. To me, sitting on the bed. The candy in her mouth had already melted. As if to compensate for it, she took another out of her pocket and tossed it into her mouth. She rolled it around in her mouth. She smiled impishly. She stood in front of me. With a coquettish expression on her face, she looked down at me.
ねえ、教えてよ。
Hey, tell me.
どんな感じだった？
How did it feel?
それとも今も効果は続いてるのかな？
Or are you under its effects even as we speak?
そんなこと聞いてどうするつもりなんだ？
Why are you asking me this? Her voice flowed in a melodious whisper from her lips.
別に
No reason.
どうもしないよ。
I won't do anything.
ただ知りたいだけ。
I'm just curious. Her alluring eyes were leading me astray. Her breathing made my bangs sway. A captivating scent stimulated my nostrils. A sweet aroma that made me dizzy.
あれやると喉が渇くんだよね。
Do you get thirsty afterward?
カラカラに乾いて喉の奥のところがくっつきそうになって。
Your throat gets so dry, growing tighter and
お
tighter.
前飲んだことあるのか？
Have you ever tried it?
さあどうかな。
Who knows, I wonder.
だけどそんなこと今は関係ないでしょ。
But that's beside the point right now, don't you think?
私はサトルの感想を聞いてるんだから。
Huh. She used it for something? Like the trial? I'm asking for your impression, Satoru. Used it to, like, for the hypnosis or something? She did it beforehand?
唇ザラザラしてるよ。
Your lips are parched.
唾液が出てこないの？
You stopped producing saliva, right?
だよね。
Of course you do.
知ってるの。
I
私
know.
知ってるっていうか聞いたことがあるっていうか。
I know, or rather, you could say I heard.
だからあれをやるときはみんな飴を持ってくるんだ。
So when they do it, everyone keeps some candy on hand.
飴を舐めると自然と唾液が出てくるか
If you suck on one, it spontaneously produces saliva,
ら
so
喉を潤してくれるか
it'll wet your throat.
ら。あげよっか。飴
Shall I give you a candy?
欲しいんでしょ。
Don't you want it?
欲しいんだよね。
You want it, right?
じゃああげるよ。
Then let me give it to you. With that declaration, Otarli suddenly pushed me down on the bed. I couldn't do anything to resist. The DMT was still eating into my body. I tried to struggle with all my might, but it was beyond my power right now. I felt as if I were moving underwater, with heavy weights slowing down my hands and feet. Everything felt as if it were happening in slow motion. My flailing arms and the sensation of being pushed down. And when her lips touched mine, with those devilish eyes before me, her soft, wavering bewitched me. I was enchanted by their gentle sway. My soul was being sucked out, my strength stolen away. My hands and feet went limp with exhaustion. I surrendered myself to her. With her left hand, Totori held my forehead down. With her right hand, she seized me by the chin. Her flushed skin was dazzlingly glossy and moist. A lukewarm scent rises from her. A womanly smell that could stir the heart of any man began to overwhelm me. Under the spell of that scent, I forgot myself. The most fleeting kiss our lips barely brushing. Surrounded by that quiet and peaceful sensation, I slipped into a doze in which I had a dream. Dream of a long ago on a faraway country. The country was at the bottom of a deep valley. It was enclosed by high mountains on the north and south, and a clear brook flowing from the east to the west. A natural reservoir had formed where the land had dammed the current. It was an incredibly clear and beautiful pond. At the center of the country, on the banks of that brook, stood an old castle. That castle, which had lost its master long ago, was already reduced to a desolate ruin. Curtains of the deep crimson that had once been able to block out the brightest light now hung in tatters, stuck out through the holes in the walls that had once been windows. The ancient curtain swayed in the passing spring breeze. Suddenly, a dark red shadow fell over the country. It was the shadow of an enormous, writhing specter. The specter swooped down from the sky, heading for the bottom of the canyon. Landing at the base of the mountains, the monster skillfully wrenched open the gate of the old castle and slithered inside. The specter assumed an air of arrogance, toying with the deep crimson curtains as it wished. At that very moment, a bolt of spring lightning struck the window, and yet the monster was unfazed. It gently caressed the curtains, tracing their textures. It ripped them from their fixtures and slithered back and forth across them. Then the specter chanted a spell. As if in response, the embankment surrounding the beautiful lake collapsed, sending a huge volume of water thundering down towards the valley below. It became a great flood. The whole country was submerged in an instant. Did it suddenly feel remorse? The specter departed the castle, leaving behind a beautiful jewel. The jewel emitted a sweet fragrance, tingling with a faint acidity. When I woke from the dream, Hotori's face was still close to mine. So that was just his description of Hotori kissing him and shooting the candy into his mouth. I presume, right?
おいしい
Is it tasty? Drawing back slightly from my lips, she whispered that to me.
おいしくないの
Or isn't it? I couldn't so much as begin to speak. At the height of my intoxication and bewilderment, I couldn't even discern the meaning of her
で
words.
も渇きは癒えたでしょう
But it satisfied your thirst, right?
それともまだ足りないかな
Or was that still not enough? Without even waiting for an answer, she approached once again. Only the faintest brush, like a kiss in childhood. I had another dream. A dream of a faraway country. When I came to my senses, Otori had already disappeared. In the corner of my mouth, only a bittersweet sphere remained. Present time, 9:45 p.m. Night had fallen long before. I took the DMT at 8 this morning. 12 hours have already passed. The residue of the chemical in my body had been disassembled and eliminated, and my physical malaise had only just begun to let up. My body had recovered to the point where I could jump around or do whatever else. And as time passed, even the memories Otori had carved into me had gradually faded away. Only that captivating scent still lingered in my nose. Nevertheless, it was no use thinking about that act of hers. I shifted my attention to other matters. I thought about the shelter cabin. What were they doing right now? On this day, 1 year ago. Mount Akakura should be undergoing a blizzard right now. With no fuel or rations left, how do they feel as time ticks away? I gotta stop right here. If I can remember how to stop. This is tricky. There we go. Okay. New title. Yes. And then check the lists again. Okay, no new endings, of course, because I missed all the bad ones that apparently existed in that. I could have hit in there somewhere. Okay, so I missed the scene between pure Eternus and Transference. Well, I probably noticed that last time. Okay. So, 20 scenes? 22 scenes. Okay. We check the pictures. Not even close. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we still have we're only halfway through on the pictures. Okay.